You ever wonder what a Gen X thinks? Welcome to Gen X Talks. And in 2013, my wife was diagnosed with leukemia and given 3 months to live. They weren't even sure how much of that 3 months she would live. Now everybody's family is filled with tragedies and triumphs. Everybody has friends and heroes. And life is filled with miracles and things that are completely unexplainable. Everybody's got a story. Well, this one's ours. Part 2 of the cancer podcast, and we did an hour, almost 2 hours before. We're picking up where we left off, but as usual, we had a few beers since then, and time has passed, and so there may be some overlap. Don't think we're trying to bore you twice with the same story. We're doing the best we can, but yeah, let's. I don't know. You're gonna tell me where do we start this?
Well, we talked about going back to the hospital. So we started my journey of maintenance chemo.
Because we'd already talked about you being in there. We already talked about the cell groups that disappeared.
Correct.
I remember that. And then this is where I get kind of fuzzy on the timeline.
So the oncologist, Dr. Wynn, said no matter what, if there was a miracle or not, his doctor brain, his medical terminology is the treatment is to do maintenance chemo following the initial treatment.
Which you were scheduled for 4. I remember that.
Scheduled for 4.
Yeah.
So we are venturing into the first week in November of 2013 to go in for maintenance chemo, which was 1 day on, one day of chemo, 1 day off of chemo, 1 day on a chemo, 1 day off, and 1 more day on.
And here's what I remember about that. I remember you going back for your first treatment because you'd been in there 30 days, then you were home, and you kept trying to work these out where you could be home for the holidays if things went well. You didn't have any problems.
So I was home.
You were not in good shape. Well, I know we can talk about hours and days and hours and off, but I'm more interested in the story. You weren't well. You were thin. You were skinny. You were not very stable walking around still, and now you'd been home for a little bit. We got reacquainted with the house. You were miserable at home for the first 2 weeks. I'd never seen a person in as much pain as you ever for that 2 weeks. I remember, I think I mentioned it in the last podcast, I had to put pillows over my ears because you checked yourself out of the hospital as quick as you could. Yeah.
No, that's after the surgery.
Was it?
Yeah.
I got those two confused?
Yeah.
Okay, so you had your chemo, you came home. That wasn't the time you were all messed up in there?
No, I was fine when I came home. I was fine during the maintenance chemo.
Okay, so you go back for maintenance and what? Go ahead.
I just said I had a day on a chemo, a day off, a day on, a day off. They rotated it. And then it was a waiting game. It was a waiting to see about crashing, waiting for that day for my body to just bottom out. That means like white blood cells, low red, no platelets, bottoming out and letting my body rebuild. So it's going through a shorter time period of the first initial treatment, but it was waiting for that because they wanted to make sure that there was no lingering cancer cells in my body anywhere. So
if at that time then, when you were going through the maintenance chemo, you hadn't lost your hair yet.
Yeah, I came home and you guys, yes, I had lost my hair. I'm looking at a picture of me.
Did we tell that story? Did we tell how we did that?
Probably not. Let's just go ahead and say it. So I came home from initial chemo with a ponytail. I had my hair up in a ponytail in the hospital, and I could literally grab my ponytail and move it.
Yeah.
I had lost, most of my hair was coming out.
It was weird because her hair, and I'm telling you guys that you could grab the head of her and move her hair across her head. Some clumps were connected and clumps weren't. But because it was all kind of stuck together, it all moved as one piece. But I remember it was like, you could tell she was losing her hair.
Oh, yeah. I told Connie, my angel, who I don't know if we've talked about yet, but I told, did we? I told Connie not to touch it. She wanted to take my ponytail out. And I said, no, don't touch it. Because we talked about, I wanted to come home and do it right in front of the kids. I didn't want to go home bald to the children.
Yeah, we were really worried about the kids, all of a sudden her showing up, going into the hospital with a full head of hair, coming home bald. We were worried that it would shock them. It's like, oh, you're a cancer patient. You look like one now.
Yeah.
So we made kind of an event out of it, and we shaved off all of her hair with everybody present. Everybody could see.
And we
They
were
saw
laughing
beginning to
and
end.
joking.
So there was no shock. They watched it happen. That kind of came to us at the last minute, but it really worked out well for the kids because then they were not shocked and more accepting of, oh, we were part of that. So that worked out.
Right. So that was right before I went in for maintenance chemo. So I arrived at the hospital with a bandana on my head. And I do remember it being November, and I didn't realize how much your hair insulates your body, that it was so cold. Like, I even had to wear a bandana to bed because it was so cold. And yes, so I realized that hospital beds aren't wonderful either, because most of the time I spent a lot of time in hospital beds. That wasn't fun.
You would think that hospitals, after all these years, could just perfect a really good bed. I mean, that's a main thing people are in. Why not make it fucking as comfortable as you can?
They're not. I got as many pillows as I possibly could to like a feather bed, and make the feather bed like nice and comfortable and stuff. So initially the maintenance chemo was okay. It didn't affect me right away. I remember getting up and continually walking and talking to the nursing staff. As soon as the chemo was done, I was like, take that IV out, like just take it out. I want to go walk. And I did. And then it was waiting to crash. That's really what it was. It was sitting around, lots of waiting.
But you
sitting
weren't
around.
It was supposed to take a week, wasn't it? Wasn't there weren't they 4 or 5 days long? I don't see. This is where I get confused because I remember taking you there and checking in on you, but I still had all the kids and I had a shop to run. I remember this is where I get confused. I got results. It's like, okay, what did they say now? Okay, this is the daily results. What are we doing now? And then what's next? That's vaguely what I remember.
During when I crashed the first time, I got a infection. God, I can't even think of the name of it, but I had, just to be really TMI, diarrhea uncontrollably. Like I had an intestinal I couldn't even get out of bed fast enough, and I felt so bad, and the nurses were like, fine. So that was the first round of that. I was battling some sort of bug of some sort with...
in the first 2 days, how long had you been there for that?
That was after a week. That was in...
So you were there a week?
Yeah, I said
Okay.
I did chemo one day, chemo off. There were 3 days of chemo,
So
and
in
in
other words, the
between.
whole process is set for 7 days for sure.
Yes, and then
Okay,
it's another
all right.
week of waiting to crash, which I did. And then I developed an infection that ended up having to be treated because of my platelet counts and my red blood cells and white blood cells being so low. You can catch anything. I mean, and the ward that I was on in the hospital, it wasn't a cancer hospital. It was a ward of whatever. It could be broken bones. It could have been the flu. It could have been... So, I mean, there's germs floating around that hospital, and lo and behold, I'm walking around in it, walking in the hallways. So I got very sick, which ended I had to stay there longer in the hospital. I fought that one off. The first maintenance chemo wasn't as bad, and I was home by Thanksgiving that year.
So how long were you in there for your first maintenance chemo?
I'd say 2.5 to 3 weeks.
And
There wasn't a lot of turnaround time between being home and going back.
And then you did make it home for Thanksgiving.
I did make it home for Thanksgiving.
Okay. And so now you're home I'll tell you, this is a dumb story. This is a stupid story, but it showed me that, and no one explained this, that her brain was messed up too. From chemo.
Chemo brain.
Yeah, chemo brain.
Because literally there was, I know my wife, I know how clean and picking up and doing stuff. Hang on, I'm a professional here. Doesn't have his phone off. I should have said that to everybody. Fucking phone's beeping away.
Well, can I just read something?
Go ahead.
While you do. In this book, my status that I wrote on November 14th says, "Good morning from inside room 319 at Mercy Hospital on Truxton in beautiful downtown Bakersfield. Here's the morning update. Numbers still low. I received platelets last night and will probably get more today. I'm tired and isolated due to the low white blood cell count. Frustrated because this is my favorite time of year and I have to look out the window to enjoy it. There's nothing I can eat or drink to help raise the numbers. It's up to God and my body to decide when they would like me to waken up. Nothing but patience here, and a big thank you to all my friends and family." So they were giving me platelets to help boost.
Right. But you talked about this infection in your intestines.
Yeah.
The main thing that happened that I am aware of was another issue with the intestines, but that is later, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Nobody realized that might have all been like part of the big picture. Like
That's
it was
what
already showing signs,
That's
but
correct. I think it was all happening back then.
nobody really tested for it.
And I wasn't aware of all this.
Okay, so then you'll see another something else happen. So I would get platelets, and there was something really funny that I'd get my lunch, and then if my blood count was still low, they would give me blood in the afternoon. So the funny thing was I would have lunch, and then they were like, "Are you ready for your nap?" So they would pump me with Benadryl because they didn't want me to have a reaction to the blood. And as soon as they gave me the Benadryl through my catheter, I was out. I was out for like 2 or 3 hours. And at that time, they would give me the blood. So I would just relax. But they did that. I had blood almost every day.
So is this your first visit still, or did we skip to the second?
This is still the first visit.
Okay.
And this is where Tony comes in, because Iceman comes in, because he was one giving blood at the blood bank for me.
Platelets. I was giving platelets.
Platelets and blood, or just platelets?
Don't you have to give both? I mean, can you get platelets without blood?
The machine, there's one tube they plug into your vein, and there's an exit and an entrance hose on that tube, and so it, for however many seconds, it's sucking blood out of you, and then it goes through a centrifuge and separates the platelets from everything else.
Wow.
And then puts the disused part back into your body.
Huh.
And so, depending on my current status, my biology at that moment, my numbers, my iron content, all that, they would try to exploit as much product from me as possible. So there were occasions where I can give 2 units of platelets along with some plasma. There were times where I only had enough chemistry happening to where my body was deemed to be able to spare 1 unit of platelets, but also a pint of blood. So it was never a common recipe occasion after occasion. I was going every 7 days.
Now, I'm not making this up. There was, if I remember somebody telling me, what I remember, and straighten me out, I think Iceman asked somebody, can I give blood to her? I don't want to just give to the blood bank. And someone said, yes, you absolutely can give to a patient. And that's when he started doing it. But he literally gave right to her. Was I right on that?
I was in disbelief. My folks had long been blood donors, right? And throughout my later, because it might be nationwide, but here in California, it's 17 before, you have to be 17 in order to donate blood products. So when I turned 17, I became a religious blood donor. And I was devout in that practice. It was every 56 days I was going to donate again. And you'd fall out of the cycle and whatnot. But my buddy Donnie was dating a gal whose younger sister had leukemia. And she's a 7-year-old girl, had leukemia. Her name was Savannah. And you would go into the blood bank, and they had like a shrine. She was still alive, but they had like a shrine for Savannah. And so I started donating platelets for Savannah. And at that time, I was under the notion that my blood products were going into the common pool, but basically I could give a credit to the account of Savannah. And so after Savannah was recovered from her bout with leukemia, and that was years. It took years for her to recover, to defeat the cancer. I supposed that when I began to donate for Mary, that it was the same thing, that it went into the common pool and there was just a credit that would go.
But that's not how it was.
But we came to find out that my blood product could be directly donated to Mary.
Yeah, because that was obviously everybody in this room knows more about that than I do.
Yeah.
But it did take me by surprise when they said that, because he did ask the question. I didn't know the answer, but I was like, okay, so that's just it's one more real connection that we're all having. But that was impressive to me that they would do that.
So I'm going to call this one a miracle, because we actually looked into this from my dad and having Damon donate it, and they said, no, you can't do that.
Wow. Well, it was a deal. It was a real, because I remember being there when they discussed it, because it was brought up and I just kind of stood back and listened. But the doctor was like, and I think it was even Dr. Wynn's like, yes, we can make sure that and it was something, Ice, what was it about your blood that was like, it's a universal or it's a special
I'm O positive, and so it's the universal giver where everybody can take it. I can only take my own kind of thing.
Yeah. So it was kind of cool. Like his was either specially compatible or universally
I'm
compatible.
O positive.
It was like,
you're O positive too?
you're something different. No, you can donate to the blood bank and we'll get her some stuff. No, it was compatible to go right there. That was odd too. You know, I was like, all right, that's another good thing. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's just a point blank miracle on that one. That they let it do it because it matched and they allowed to go straight to it because we literally looked in because my dad was getting blood all the time because of his issues, and we looked into Damon being a donor because he can potentially carry at times extra iron, which my dad needed, and they said no, you can't do that.
Wow. Well, I know that this whole thing unfolded with ICE being able to be there for her because of my schedule. I could go there just certain parts of the day. I couldn't live down there. You know, we had 8 kids and then the business to run, and I was busy. But it was
and
also
Iceman was truck driving.
He was truck driving, so his schedule, he had a very set schedule, and he took his free time and could show up.
I remember the occasion when we were face to face, person to person. I was in your presence, and you begged of me, you know, saying that with your shop to run, your kids take to sporting events and FFA stuff. You know, all the busyness you had to do, you were begging me to go spend time with her, and I was game. You know, I'd be gone for a couple days, going up to Idaho. That's when you first informed me that she was sick.
Yeah.
I was in between Pocatello, Idaho, and Twin Falls, Idaho, and my co-driver was driving, and I saw your text message. And
I don't want you guys to see the way he just presented it. It was like, I don't really care about Mary, but you begged me to do it, so I went.
No.
He really did have a heart.
No, what I'm trying
to go.
What I'm trying to relate is that Mark was in such a state of disarray that he had to beg the charity of me.
Oh, for sure.
He was in a position to beg charity of someone, and I was game. I was totally game. I was like, you know what? I get in at Saturday morning at 4:00 in the morning. I'll go home, take a nap, take a shower, whatnot, and go spend 6 hours with Mary.
You did.
And he did, which is a lot to do.
And then the following Tuesday, I'd return from a trip up to the Bay Area, and I'd go Tuesday evenings. That was when I would bring you Chinese food.
That's right.
It was Tuesday evening.
Sneak your food in.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then
play cards.
Yeah, and play cards, play Monopoly. And,
Play cards.
And then commonly on Saturdays, it seemed like she was kicking me out. Because she would be so exhausted, so worn out. And I could be there for 20 minutes before she was at that threshold where she was like, all right, I need to sleep, I need to rest. Or like just interacting with someone was exhausting, you know, on top of all the punishment her body was going through.
Yeah.
So
the good news was he was already a friend of the family. It's not like he was someone we just met. He was dialed in to where he knew exactly how to communicate and sit. And I knew that I could get an accurate report from ICE, like, okay, how was she today? You know, when I go check on you at night, and then I can call him and go, what happened during the day? Yeah. And plus, he's not totally incompetent. He hears things the doctors are saying. He can remember and relay. He goes, well, I did hear this today, and they were talking about that, where some people that would visit her at different times throughout this whole thing would have no idea to tell me, you know, by the way, they were talking about an infection. I'm like, what? You know, they wouldn't know to say that. Yeah. He would. It was an absolute necessity that someone be there for her when I couldn't, and we were just very fortunate that not only did he have the time because of his schedule allowed him to be there during the day, but it was also that he was willing to do it. It was huge because it was a big, big, big deal.
So maybe Damien can talk about this next thing. I remember after the maintenance chemo and the first initial chemo was the bone pain that you experience. And I believe that's with the dropping of the red and blood cells, am I right? And the platelets?
Right. So
and why does your body do that?
So I was tasked with doing bone marrows for a hospital. So I've done a few hundred bone marrows. Every time I go in to take that bone marrow out, I think what you're experiencing was that deep bone pain that happens. So when I pull that out, it's basically dehydrating that bone marrow. So it's pulling it out, and that pulling out of it is just a pain that I don't think anybody can describe. you're not supposed to remember pain, but you do. It's a certain type of pain that happens. It's just deep seated. It's not something you can touch, and that is essentially what's happening. It's almost like a really bad dehydration of your body. It's just something that just aches and throbs, and it's very intense.
And after my platelets and everything would drop, I would have it also. Like it would it was almost when I'd go down to almost zero or at zero most of the time, my whole body, it was worse than any flu I'd ever had in my whole entire life. I can't even explain it. On the threshold of pain, it's your whole body.
Your body was on overdrive trying to manufacture those platelets and everything that it's trying to do, but also being depleted of.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. And then when you crash, I remember having a hard time just trying to even open my eyelids, like even to move my head. All I wanted to do was just lay. I would say you were pretty close to death without actually dying. Like you knew everything that was going on. I could hear everything. I could see if I could open my eyelids, but it took every effort that I could to do it. So I knew when I crashed, that's when I had to be in bed. And then we had to just wait. It was such a, God granted me a lot of patience.
What bothered me is that, I'd check on you early in the mornings and ask, and then I'd call during the day, and I'd talk to, if Connie was there, Iceman was there, and then I'd go by and visit you at night on the way home or come back. But I didn't know what was going on for how long do we do this? How long? Okay, I understood the part about, chemo for a day, then a day off, chemo for a day. But then when you're done, it's like, okay, so no one gave me a clear answer on what we were waiting for. Finally, one doctor's, he had a chart on the wall, like a whiteboard, and he goes, okay, look real quick. And he's like, your platelets got to be here before she can go. He gave me a couple of numbers to shoot for, but as just a dumb mechanic looking in, I'm sitting there every day going, okay, chemo's done. What are we doing? He's like, well, we got a problem here, because it seemed like now maybe this is just my dumb brain, but it seemed like every time I turned around, they were telling me that her platelets were beyond low.
Yeah.
Why was that what was the deal with that? Because it was, one doctor would say, well, they're low, we're going to give her some platelets. Then the next day they'd go, oh, it didn't take. They're still low. It's like 120,000 platelets. Oh, now we're down to 12,000. I'm like, okay, well, what do we, is there a problem? And no one would tell me anything.
It's not that it doesn't take. It just, hers are being chewed up and spit out.
They get spent.
So quickly that they just had to be replenished. So when you get down below 10,000 or 6,000 is usually the number where you have to keep getting it. You'll continue to get that until you have that level that they're talking about, that's safe for you to go anywhere.
Right. That I didn't understand why. I guess it was your body wasn't making it or wasn't making it.
It was trying. It just wasn't. It wasn't
accepting it. That's what they kept telling me.
But I remember the evenings she'd look at me and I'd look at her and I'd say, okay, I got to go home. And she's like, I know. And I'm still stuck here because I can't do anything. And she was exhausted during the time. And there was no, well, one more round and you'll be fine. No one ever said that. It was just, well, we'll just wait and see. We'll give her more platelets and wait and see.
Well, it was platelets, probably also white count.
Yeah.
The white count's another story. So you're waiting for both to recover.
Everything, yeah.
So there's something called a nadir count. And that count is so many days after you receive chemo that it's going to be pretty much like clockwork, that you can look and see that this is when it's supposed to hit the low part. That's the nadir count. And then it's supposed to recover after that. So it's a watching and waiting game.
It is. And there was a lot of times where I wasn't, like, he would walk in and go, you're not where you're supposed to be.
Right.
Like there was a chart, but I wasn't going with the chart. Remember, he kept saying, my body was not going like the normal.
A point of reference is all I need, because I didn't understand.
Yeah.
All I know is that, and this is the part that isn't really medical, so maybe it doesn't count as much as part of the story, but it's like if I'd leave her on a Thursday, let's say, it's like, okay, what's the deal? Well, we're doing this, doing that. I'm like, all right, well, I got to go. And then I'd go home and all the kids would swarm me and go, how is she? What's going on? And you get to where you don't overtalk it. You go, they're still working on some stuff. Everything's fine. But us leaving each other again, after all the stuff we've been through, and it felt like to us sometimes when it's on a Thursday, it could be a regular day, it felt like we were breaking up again. Mm-hmm. It just felt like you're separating. Like she's looking at me going, please don't go, but didn't say it. And I'm looking at it like, I don't want to go home, but I didn't say it out loud. And then guess what? Then we do it all over again the next day. And I had to go home and settle everybody down. Did you got your homework? Everybody, 8 kids or 6, 7 kids, you get your homework done. Does everybody have dinner? Did we all everybody take a shower, take a bath, go to bed? And then individually, they'd all sneak in and go, give me the real story, Dad, what's going on? Every one of them. And Briggs, he'll tell you if he was here, he did a thing, he was 8. He did a thing called lifeboating. And every day that she was gone through the 30 days and after that, he'd come to my door with a big blanket and a pillow, and he'd make himself a bed on the floor next to me, next to my bed. And he just asked, can I sleep here? And I said, no, I don't care, sleep. But every night he lifeboated. That was his thing. He called it his lifeboat where he could sit there. But every day we had to go through this and I go home because the question everybody asked, and then my mom would call and your mom would call. And they'd say, well, when? Now, as a dumb mechanic, I'm trying to interpret your doctor stuff going, I don't know, there's platelets, there's cell counts. She had them. Well, they gave her the platelets yesterday. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't work. What am I going to tell him? I didn't understand it. But I kept saying, we're trying again tomorrow.
Very difficult. As a doctor that doesn't know, how are you supposed to know? Yeah. Right? And if the doctor comes in every day looking at those, waiting to see those numbers to be the magical number to be able to go, and it's not there. Do you know how not from, physicians have a heart, they have a soul. They're looking at you going, I want this for you too. And when that doesn't happen, we have to go to whoever's there and deliver that news. It's awful. And that's daily.
The best part of those moments of trying to figure stuff out, because I'm not kidding, maybe I'm speaking out of turn for you, but I felt like it was a breakup every night. I'd go home going, well, this is just dumb. I don't like it. I don't like going home without my wife. But Dr. Wynn, as crazy as that cat was about stuff, he was so even keeled. He'd come in and say, okay, here's, if I got lucky enough to catch him on one of the rounds, I'd try to pry stuff. Come on, give me the skinny, man. These doctors here aren't telling me shit. I don't understand it. He very calmly, he'd put his hand on my shoulder and go, listen, we're going to keep doing this until the numbers get there. And he kept saying, and they will.
Yeah, he's right. He's been there, done that.
He made me feel that what he was going through wasn't uncommon at all.
Yeah.
No, been here through this. I'm not even worried. This is so happens all the time. We're right where we're supposed to be. Yeah, sometimes we can get out of here sooner. Sometimes no problem. Just those kind of words helped me go home at night when I caught him.
Yeah,
but I didn't like the whole feeling of not knowing when.
Sure.
So Tony and I have a story to share. I think it was a Tuesday night because you were there late. Remember playing cards and we were up late, and when we played cards, we talked like we were in the alleys. I would just call you bitch, and we'd be like, he would let me cuss up a storm, and it just made me laugh. And we remember doing that all the time. We would just scream at each other.
Absolutely.
And then
a nurse would come in and be like, is everything okay?
Yeah, she did. And we're just laughing. We were just like in a bar. Do you remember the night you stayed kind of late, like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and you had just left? And I went into the bathroom because when you're getting chemo, the nurses are very particular about hygiene. Chemo destroys your enamel on your teeth and everything. So they were telling me about brush. So I remember being in the bathroom and brushing, and all of a sudden I saw on my tongue like this big red bump that all I can say is looked like a caterpillar. And then my gums were all blistered and red. I couldn't even brush my teeth anymore or my tongue or anything. And I remember, didn't I send you a picture, Tony?
I did. Maybe not that night, but at least the next day. Because the image I have in my mind is it was blackened. So it was no longer bloody. It was a gigantic tongue scab. Yeah. And
so that started to make it very difficult to eat.
Go ahead.
After that moment in time. Yeah. But maybe, Damien, what was the cause of that? Was that just the blood level?
Without seeing that, I don't know if that's still around, but it reminds me of a blood vessel that kind of...
So I felt so terribly guilty because I had smuggled her food that day. It was more Chinese food. Mm-hmm. And I was... My go-to concept was that the egg flour soup was too hot and she burned her tongue. Yeah. and that this was some sort of burn on her tongue that went haywire with her immune system, and it was overcompensating for harmless.
Nothing you did.
It wasn't anything you did.
I felt so bad.
I'm all for blaming Iceman.
It wasn't.
Blame somebody. He's
No, because they had told me to watch out for that. Like any changes in my body that I physically saw, the nurses wanted to know. They weren't in any, like, it wasn't an emergency or anything. They just documented it. And they told me, they said, oh, this is normal. You know, they were like, okay. So they just put it on my chart. Well, that feeling of them just coming in and wasn't panicking was comforting at times. Like, okay, so I'm just going through the process. So that happened one night when we were playing, and I just thought that was really
just to
funny.
be fair,
then.
I wasn't, she's talking, they're, cussing up a storm, playing cards and shit. And I'm always trying to pry the information out of the doctors because they don't understand. I wasn't just an asshole. There was a lot of times I brought stacks of pizzas to the
nursing staff.
And nurses, and I said, I know you guys do a lot. Sometimes you don't get to leave. I said I'd bring just stacks of sodas and napkins and pizzas, or I'd go by and get 50 cheeseburgers or something. I tried to do something that I know that not everybody thinks of them. Mm-hmm. And so they did take a little bit of the edge off of me being abrupt. They're like, just put up with the dude. He's kind of a dick, but he's figuring this shit out.
But the other miracle I would say is that we were lucky enough that we weren't down in LA, because you asked about going to UCLA. We were in a smaller town, small hospital, 4 floors, I think. Yeah. And they knew my name, and the nurses knew me, and they were the same nurses most of the time. And I got more one-on-one care than if I would have went to UCLA. I think I would have been a number or I think you would have been in a
rotation, But
I had very personal care with them, and they took very good care of me. All the nurses did.
I found a lot of solace in how much confidence she had in the medical staff, and Dr. Wynn, all the nurses, the angel that would come, like she was always beaming with surety that they were doing the absolute, all aces job on her, and it gave me a lot of solace knowing that she had that much confidence in their abilities. It was amazing.
So you get through your first session. We talked about all the stuff that went wrong and the confusion. I won't bore everybody with questions on platelets again, but that was the feeling every time we did this.
Yes.
So then you went home after that. What time did you go home?
I went home right before Thanksgiving. So we had Thanksgiving, and then I was due back the first week of December to go into round two of chemo. So after maintenance chemo. So after same routine, 1 day of chemo, 1 day off. But this time around, I developed a very high fever. I'd never experienced this high of a fever before. It was averaging, I think the highest they told me was 105. They were very worried about me. So at this time, I had bottomed out, so I did not really have an immune system, but my body was fighting it. I remember being in the hospital bed in a fetal position and it felt like days. I was trying to fight this off. They wrapped me in ice packs to bring down the temperature. They wheeled me out to they had a room with an ice bath. This was a very old hospital. They stuck me in an ice bath. They put an ice blanket on me. We were trying to drop the temperature. I was trying to fight it. They ended up calling an infectious disease doctor in, and she immediately stopped the ice baths and all the ice treatments because she was impressed that even with no immunity in my body, that I was fighting it. She was telling the nurses to just let me go. So I
let you go, and the fact let your body
let my body. Yeah, sorry, not let me go, but let me fight it.
Clarify that.
Sorry, let me fight it. My body and stuff. She was very impressed with that was happening, and she told me just to keep fighting. It felt like days. I don't know how many days that happened. I can't even remember. But I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I just laid in bed, fighting off this infection. And at that time, when that happened, I couldn't have any more visitors. You couldn't come visit me.
No,
they shut me. They shut
you out. Like there was almost nobody could go in that room. It wasn't just wash your hands. It was. I remember going one day. I had to check myself because I said, "You're not going to tell me I can't see my wife. None of you are big enough to stop this." And I remember one of the nurses saying, "You want to kill her? Mm-hmm. You carrying stuff on you right now. Go in there and she's dead." And I'm like, "Whoa." He goes, "I'm just telling you, man. We're not trying to be assholes here." I complied. I backed off, but I don't know how long it was. It wasn't super long, but it was at least 3 days or so.
I was going to say 3 days. It felt like longer, but
and it wasn't just wash your hands and go in. It was like they weren't hazmat suits, but they were very particular on how they handled the situation. So I knew something was really wrong, otherwise we'd be able to, or delicate anyway would be the right thing. That was a tough moment because I didn't want to leave because I didn't know, do I sit guard outside the door? Do I not need to keep people out? And there I am going home again.
So I wanted to back before you mentioned that you had like the diarrhea and you're like TMI. The chemo doesn't just affect your blood, it affects your immune system, which is laid in your gut. So your all your intestines actually carries a big chunk of your immunity. So when the chemo goes in, it kills that off, not just the platelet portion of the immunity. And so when you have all of that going on, that's,
my body was
you annihilated the immunity reserves in your gut.
Ugh. Well, that explains a lot.
That's when, I'm thankful for doctors, of course, because you guys know a ton of shit, but man, the not knowing, when you don't know what's going on, this isn't just your kid has a pain in his stomach and you have 5 or 6 home remedies you try. You're at a level where I probably have never felt more hopeless in my life because I don't understand anything going on.
But if that doctor sat down with you and just said, look, this is going to be a watch and wait process. We're going to kill everything off and we're going to wait for that to come back. That waiting is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And if the doctor would have said, I don't know either what day it's going to be.
Right.
Would that have helped you?
It would have helped me if the doctor would have come in. Like finally, Dr. Wynn, when I told you he comes in and he gives you, just like what Iceman said, there's such a projection of confidence that things are going to be okay, that you have confidence in the staff. Dr. Wynn would come in and do that with me. He wouldn't say, okay, look, man, we're going to give her this thing and a really quick version is 4 days she's out. That's the fastest I've seen. But I've also seen people that have been in here for 9 weeks. That's the longest version. Maybe I would have been like, okay, well, as long as we're not longer than 9 weeks, we're normal, but he never gave me a date. He never gave me days, but he did say, he was very clear. He's like, just relax, man, relax. He goes, relax, big guy. He goes, this is how it goes. I'm right with my wheelhouse here. I'm not outside of what's normal. Everything's good. He was letting me know that if things drug on longer than he's supposed to, then he would tell me. So as long as he wasn't telling me, it was fine. But I would have, same with you. I asked you, when you came down on me with that phone call 2 weeks ago, and you said, everybody leave the room, just you and me, I almost asked you point blank, if I choose just live a fucked up life, how long do I have to live? You ain't gonna tell me.
Couldn't answer it.
You wouldn't tell me.
Can't answer that.
You doctors all hover around not telling you shit. I'm not
too many factors.
He did the same thing with her. He wouldn't say, how long she'll be recovering from chemo. He just said, hey, this is normal. And I was okay with that. Would I have appreciated more conversation? Yeah, probably a little bit, but you can't really give me more. You're just going to repeat yourself because you doctors never give timelines. It's very difficult to do.
We learn not to. You try when you're young and idealistic and you think that you know it, and you find out that you just get humbled every time you do that. So you learn not to do that.
Yeah. So
you brought up the fact that your nursing staff was calm, cool, collected. Dr. Wynn was calm, cool, collected. It's almost like you're on the plane with the turbulence and you're looking over at the
stewardesses,
the flight attendants to see if they're worried. If they're worried, now you're worried. Right. So you were looking around going, okay, I guess it's okay. I guess we're fine. Yeah. And you roll with it.
I did.
So you got past the infection, you got past the fever.
Right. And then everything came back up and Dr. Wynn sent me home for a nice this is when I came back early December-ish, I guess, middle, and I was able to stay home. We bargained with him. I wanted to stay home until after the holidays.
Right.
And so he let me take a nice little long break, and I didn't have to go in until January, the day after New Year's.
This is the story that I was trying to bring up, and then I got interrupted on my phone about how I didn't understand that chemo affected your brain. And we all say, oh, of course it would. How dumb would you be not to think it would? Well, but I never really saw it. I didn't understand it until you see it. And it was the weirdest thing to see some of her basic decisions fly out the window. And this is one stupid story. It's really dumb, but this is when I knew I felt like I need to take more control over my wife when she's home and just kind of be near her. Like, well, no, don't, let's put the knife down. You're going to drop that. Because she did something where she spilled some grease. It was some cooking grease or something, just carrying it. And she spilled it on the floor. And she took a paper towel and she wiped it up, and I was keeping the kids away, and she walked off, and I went, you ain't getting grease off the floor with a paper towel. I mean, I can see it still there. And she goes, it's fine. And I went, you never leave a mess in your kitchen. You would never. And then Briggs walked over it, and he slipped, and he pulled a muscle inside his leg, and he was screaming in pain. And I was ready to lose my mind with her, going, why didn't you, when you clean it up, what the fuck you doing? We all have to, it's right in front of the refrigerator. We're all going to, and she was still like, oh, he didn't slip from that. And I'm like, this is not my wife. There's no way she would. And then it was little things you'd notice like that were just different. She'd leave the bathroom one time and leave the water running. And you're like, okay, and you walk in and turn, no big deal. I'm not saying it was a big issue, but I realized that some of her, I don't know what you'd call it. There weren't fine motor skills, but it was the little things. You literally had to walk around and make sure that she turned the stove off and make sure the water was off. And if she spilled something, she'd go clean it up. And right after chemo, how could her brain not work like that? She's always been better at that than me.
Yeah, so that's called brain fog is kind of the general term for it. And I'm not working where I do in a brain clinic, and we can actually see it. It's interesting. We've had patients that come in post chemo that get treated specifically for brain fog or post chemo or chemo brain, and you can see it. You can see this.
Like you can visually plug a thing onto your head and take a picture of it?
Absolutely. And the waves, you won't get too much into it, but delta waves are sleep waves. Theta waves are in between awake and asleep. And then alpha waves are awake and functioning normally. Beta waves is what we're doing right now. The brain is stuck in delta or theta.
Wow.
Stuck. And you can see it. Objectively look at it and see it.
Go ahead.
What you're saying, I mean, if we were to put on that the cap and get an EEG of the brain at that time, we would see that she's functioning kind of like the Commodore 64 computer versus these newer computers now.
It was eye-opening to have to see that. And then it was heartbreaking because I thought she's going to be like that forever. And I even brought it up when I had a conversation, because Dr. Wynn would call during her time off, and I'd say, she's doing good. I'd go, but take the phone to the side a little bit and go, the fuck is with her spilling stuff and walking? You'd say something or leave the water on. And he would say, that's just part of chemo, and he'd give me some explanation. He goes, but he always said, don't worry, that goes away, which it did with her. I mean, even now she'll make a mistake that she wouldn't have made 10 years ago, but that could just be because we're getting old. I'm not going to attribute that to chemo, but all of that stuff that she was doing at that time did correct. Every bit of it was, there's tons of it that got fixed, but God, no one told me about that. No one warned me, hey, for the first couple weeks or whatever, follow her around. Just make sure, don't let her, don't let her wear roller skates on the stairs. No one said anything like that. So that kind of caught me off guard. That would have been good information to know. Just keep an eye.
Yeah.
Right,
I do remember that. So we were scheduled to go back in January 2nd for the third of four initial or maintenance chemo.
Now, if I'm not mistaken here, this is where the world falls apart.
That is correct. January of 2014.
Yeah.
So as I'm reading this book that I have in front of me, things are coming back clear. They started my maintenance chemo, and in the book right here that I'm reading, it said that I had kind of a reaction to this one. And so this might have started the whole thing that we're leading up to. I was in terrible pain after the first chemo treatment that they gave me. I had never been in pain before with the chemo that they did, but I started to have it that time. So that was January 3rd.
This is your third session of chemo, maintenance chemo, and this is after the first round.
The first
during your
night.
Third session. Yeah, okay.
The first night, I started to develop some severe pain, and they started to give me pain medicine for it. So I had a different reaction to this chemo that I had that day. So again, it was chemo on, chemo off. It was a rotating schedule for a week. So again, we were waiting, and this is where I'm going to go till I know what happened in January. I do remember being in my room. I do remember having the worst pain ever. It hit me like it wasn't a gradual like labor pain coming on. I doubled over in pain in my bed. And it was worse than anything I've ever had in my whole entire life. The pain ripped through my whole body. And I don't remember much after that. I just remember the nurses running into the room and just a lot of yelling. That's all I can remember about that.
I remember I think she was on the 3rd floor of the regular hospital for chemo. And somebody called me from the hospital and said, she's in trouble. And they moved you to ICU, but it was okay, am I going to get this right? That there's rooms where there's one-on-one doctor-patient, but there's also an area where there's one doctor for 2 patients, let's say.
Nurse
for 3. Something like that.
Yeah.
It was the area where it wasn't as critical, but it was in
higher level
ICU.
of care.
What's that?
Higher level of care, more acute.
Yeah, but we it wasn't like everyone was focusing on her. It was like, hey, we need to move her down here. So I got there, and this is the room you keep bringing up like you think it's a dream. It was a long room with a door at the very end of the long wall of the room, and the short side of the room is what you were facing. It was a weird rectangle room for as far as hospital rooms go. And when I got there, Dr. Wynn was there. He'd left his practice here in town and driven across town to be there. He got there before me. And God, I don't want to misspeak on this. She was in a terrible pain. They knew they said there was some sort of an infection.
Yeah, it says here that they did a CT scan to see what's going on in the liver, kidney, and stomach areas.
At some point, they said, and maybe I'm skipping something important here, but
yes. Then it says Mary had a bad reaction to pain meds, freaked out a bit, ended up with 2 bumps on her head from falling.
Yeah, you did that again.
CT scan on her head, and I was in terrible pain.
That was okay, that's right. That was when you were back in the 3rd floor room. You actually were in such pain and nothing was getting corrected. You got up. She got out of bed, and they had to try to wrestle her back in bed, which didn't go very well, and she ended up hitting your head again, and she had a bump on her head. It wasn't a gash, but it was a fucking knot. Mm-hmm. And I asked what happened, and of course they're all, oh, it's all her, and she ruined everything and jumped up out of bed. And then you find out later from some of the custodian dudes are like, yeah, 4 people tackled her because she was leaving, and you did get hurt, but they got you back in the bed. They strapped you down to keep you there. I remember that. I forgot about that. And then they got you to that other room. But then they were doing, you said they did a CT scan in your head, but I remember them, maybe it was just an x-ray or I don't know what it was, something MRI. I don't know what you do
CT.
there.
It was a CT of her belly.
Okay, well, they did the scan, and that's when they said you were septic. They
Correct.
said, we need to move her, and I didn't know what septic was.
Right. So this is where kind of I come into this, because everything else you've been saying, I had no idea. I didn't even know Iceman was there. I thought it was Connie the whole time. I didn't know any of that.
Just be clear that we just focused on Iceman being there for that one session. I can't overstate how many times he was there for all of this. But I don't want you to think it was just those 4 days. And no, that dude was a solid guy helping out over this entire event whenever he could.
So the events that are unfolding, you're putting that on Facebook, and you're giving these accounts that the updates of what's happening. And so when that CT came up and you said she's horrible pain and the CT scan showed an infection, immediately it was typhlitis, and I that's when I picked up the phone to call you.
Let me pause real quick for everybody who's listening or watching, and we've said this before, but you may be late in the program on this. We didn't know how to communicate to all of the friends and all of the family. I didn't want to come home and make 50 phone calls every night. So what we decided to do was every day I would take what I learned that day and just update it on Facebook. Every day there was a Facebook post. Here's how she did. Here's what she ate. Iceman was there. There was Connie was there. Platelets this. Just an update. So Damon was watching these updates, and that's what you're saying. You read that on Facebook, and you called me and said,
no longer was this just sit back and watch. When I saw what was happening and immediately go to my experience with this condition, it was a level of, this is where the flight attendants are very nervous, and this is something was just, I had to get your attention, and I did, and I called you.
Yeah. So the notes here to trigger your guys' mind, if possible. This was January 17th. It says, very bad news. This was you talking. You and I were in the ICU room, which I'll tell you, I don't remember this. The radiologist, the attending doctor, and the oncologist all agreed that today's CT scan showed Mary's infection had grown and was soon to be life-threatening. It was lower intestine and colon area. The oncologist has suggested he bring in a surgeon, a specialist in this type of infection and surgery. So you said that you had to sit with me and tell me what it was, and till this day I do not recall you ever talking
until you just.
He said finally the surgeon came in and said, no way is anyone doing the surgeries on her tonight. Her results would indicate to do surgery, but by examining her in person, I say no way.
I remember. I've forgotten about that. I'm having a hard time saying it.
So the oncologist agreed with the surgeon to give me more time to heal and to get stronger.
I had to sit and tell you, and I didn't remember this till you brought it up just now. I hadn't thought about it since then. I remember sitting there trying to explain to you that they need to do a surgery that you may not live through. Now, this is where I'm getting confused, because I remember this conversation, but at that time, they kept saying it was an infection. They kept saying it was like, we can let her, they did say, you got to let her heal. She's got to get a little stronger before we can go in there. Okay. And I kept trying to tell you, look, this is pretty bad. We're in trouble. You're in trouble here. And I remember talking to you, and I remember how you looked. I don't remember what you said, but that couldn't have been the septic thing, because that's not an infection, is it? I mean,
absolutely. Sepsis is infection. Overwhelming infection.
Then I'm going to tell you what they told me later, and you can tell me what I'm not getting there from here. My bridges aren't connecting, but
right.
So I remember sitting with you, and you were awake and you were conscious, but you were drugged up, and I kept trying to say, we're in trouble and this may be it.
So that was the 17th. On the 20th, you wrote, well, we are off the cliff. Faithful people prayed. Our thanks will never be enough. There were 3 times when Mary's life was hour by hour. We did pass along the seriousness and urgency of these times. Let's see. And you came through with such powers. Mary believes it surpassed the medicine being given. Hold on. Her body rejects platelets. I'm trying to see possibilities we are hoping for. Platelets will begin to come up. White blood cells will begin to come up. The pain will subside. The scan will show the infection spreading or not reducing in the area that it's in. We were waiting, is what it is.
Right. But
on the 20th.
You got better, or you stopped getting worse, is my remembering, is that I don't know. It wasn't surgery. They didn't give her any surgery. They gave her medicines and stuff. And literally there was one night where the doctor was like, okay, it's like 11 o'clock at night. If she's still here by 4 a.m, I'm going to be impressed, because this is just, there's nothing we can do but sit and wait.
Correct. And that's antibiotics at that point. So that's antibiotics to knock it down, the sepsis and everything else. The other part of this was that we had this conversation. I don't know when you want to bring that up, but I was on high alert, and I said, she needs a surgeon. That's what's going to fix this. I didn't, I knew she was septic because they brought up a medication called Zygris, and you're like, they want to give her this medication in Zygris, and I said, I know exactly what that is. You're like, that's $10,000 a pop to give, and I said, don't worry about that. I said, let's.
Dad, I want to tell you that, and I know you've learned this later, Mary. I'm talking to you. I know you've learned this later, but at that time, he was on the phone. I'm like, look, I was, by all the time that I had missed work and tried to keep the business open and keep payroll and everybody, we were exhausting all of our money. We were running out of I didn't have it. I knew I was going to end up zeroed soon. And this thing comes that they wanted. The doctor even came up and he's like, well, she needs this medicine. She needs this deal. And it's $10,000 a shot. And I think he said she might need 4 of them is what he told me, if I remember. And I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind. That was right when you and I were on the phone. And I want to tell you right now, Damon said he'd cover it. Not even a hesitation. Didn't think about it. Didn't call his banker. He just said, I got it. Just do it. I remember that. Vividly, I remember that part.
Right. But I knew that this issue right now is more so a surgical issue, though. And we're not quite there yet at this point, but I knew that this was really bad, and tiflitis. I haven't seen anybody. I know this is coming, but I haven't seen anybody beat this ever.
They moved her right about this time when you and I were talking. They moved her from that one weird room into another room, which was almost all glass, and it was right near the main nurse's station where those ladies in there could see right into the room. And I mean, it was that, and they had someone in there all the time. Like
That's the next note on here. That was the next day.
Was when they moved her, and I don't remember why they moved. I guess it was more serious, but I should have been more worried when they moved her to a location like that. But like you said, the infection had calmed down, and I think we're doing better. We're more in the clear. The numbers were better. And I knew that Damon, along with the oncologist, Dr. Wynn said, we still need a surgeon to do this, but let's get some time. Let's get the infection down. Then we'll get a surgeon, a specialist. So I'm thinking still that this thing's pretty normal. At this point, no one is telling me that you were on the edge of a cliff. Everyone was still kind of, well, let's go through the numbers and go through. I didn't know that was what you said. What was it called?
The medication?
No,
Tiflitis.
I didn't know it was that, and I didn't know that nobody survives this. No one said anything. I just know they moved you, and the medication was doing good, and you were becoming a little more coherent. Would you want to read something from the book?
Well, no, I was going to tell you, now you need to start talking about what led up to the surgery.
Well,
like, what was I looking like?
Okay.
What was told? Because I don't know.
All right, I'm going to try not to get this out of order. If I get it out of order, it's not intentional. When you were in that room, I was spending more days there. Like, I didn't care if my shop burned down. Didn't matter anymore. I couldn't keep this balance up there. I needed to be with her. So I was. And I finally got myself to a point where I wasn't arguing with the nurses and doctors anymore. I was, questioning, but I wasn't, I really was out of my element. So when they were saying we need to do, I was like, okay, yeah, I get that, makes sense. And, it's all right. We'll move her to a new room. All right. The one thing, stupidly, that I chose to stand up for, she was complaining for like 6 hours. She was in bed, and she goes, I just want to sit up. And so we moved the bed as far up as this particular bed would go, and it didn't sit upright, and she kept 6 hours. And I'm like, well, can we just put her in a chair? And she's hooked up to gear. And they kept saying, no. Finally, I was like, dude, just get a fucking chair. I'll set her in the chair. If it doesn't work out, I'll set her back in the bed. I mean, I'm strong enough to pick her up. This isn't going to be a struggle for me. Just, if she wants to sit up, can we at least try it? Finally, one of the nurses or the doctor was on call. I said, fine, get a chair. So they went and they get this chair, set it in there. And I said, okay, we got you a chair, and you were hurting and you were in pain and you were hoping sitting in the chair would do something. And I picked her up and just moved her over, and I made sure the cords were doing their thing. And I just started to set her in the chair, and she went lifeless, just limp. Just her head fell back, her arms, and every monitor started beeping, flatline things beeping, and I was quickly setting her back in the bed. There was 95 people that ran in that room. I mean, they grabbed me and yarded me out of there by the back of the neck. There was an orderly guy that was probably a foot taller than me, nicely, but he's, and I looked through this big, I told you it was windows, and I was on the outside, and you coded, you were gone, and the one nurse says, we're trying to bring her back. So when I tell you there was 95 people in the room, okay, maybe there was 5 or 6, but man, they were organized. They knew right what they were doing. This wasn't a clusterfuck. They got on it, and they worked on you and worked on you and worked on you. And I asked one of the people coming out, I said, is she going to make it? And they said, I don't know. And it was very clear that you had coded or died or left, and they were trying to just bring you back to be heartbeat. That's right when our second oldest son walked in the hallway, and he just goes, hey, what's going on? And I said, we're having a problem. And he looks, and he immediately sees this, and he's like, is mom going to make it? And I said, we're going to know in about 1 minute. I don't know. And he blacked out. He walked over to the wall behind, this hallway we were in, and just slid to the floor. He just blacked out and sat down, and he was with his eyes closed. It seemed like 2 hours, but I know it was only a minute or two, and they came out and said, okay, we stabilized her. And I said, what happened? And they brought in some sort of a scanning machine, like can go over you. And that was when she was brought back and heart beating again. And they were doing all these things. And I don't know if it was right away or maybe it was a little bit after that, the one doctor said, and this is where he explained what sepsis was. He didn't said the other thing, the tinnitus or anything. He didn't explain it this way. He goes, okay, he goes, if you take part of your intestine and you tear a hole in it, and the bile that is normally going out your body starts seeping through the rest of your body. And I said, okay, what do we do? He goes, as soon as, this is the words he used, so don't, I'm not making this part like it's my statement. He said, if that bile fluid makes its way and touches an organ from the outside, it kills the organ immediately, is what he told me. He said, so if it makes its way to her liver, it's done. Your liver's dead. If it seeps to your kidney, and I went, okay, what do we do? And he said, well, this is where his explanation started to get me confused. He said, this is how sepsis works. If it touches something, it's dead. He said, you have to do surgery to repair the tear. And he said, the problem is we can't do surgery on her. And I said, I don't understand. He said, I have had patients who look like you, full-grown man, walk into the hospital and say, I don't feel good right here. And we find out within an hour he's gone septic. And I tell the guy, you're probably not going to live through the surgery. You're a healthy man. You just walked in. And I'm telling you, it's a 50-50 shot that you will live through the surgery as a healthy male walking into my hospital. He goes, do you see her? There's no possible way we couldn't even open her up and she'll be dead, let alone survive this type of surgery. It's not going to happen. And I said, well, you're confusing me now. You brought her back 2 hours ago. It was, we got the medication. We're on the right path. The infection's gone down. Let's get ready for a surgeon. He goes, something broke open and it is now 1,000,000 times worse. He said, this is where you've said I kind of say this right, and this stuck in my head. He goes, we have what's called pressors. And I said, I don't know what a pressor is. He goes, let's say we're doing surgery on a healthy person and their vitals all drop during surgery. We give them a pressor. It brings everything back up. We continue the surgery. He says, and if it falls again during there, we have a second one. We can, a different type, and it brings it back up. I said, okay. He goes, we only have 6. That's all there are. He goes, there's only 6. I said, yeah. He goes, we've used all 6 already to get her to the point of barely hanging on by her fingernails. We've used all 6. she's probably not going to wake up again, and she's definitely not going to be here in 24 hours. He goes, there's nothing we can do. There's no surgery to do anymore. He goes, the best thing to do is to give her as much pain medication as you can. And he told me she's not going to wake up. This is how she's unconscious. She's drugged up right now. She's going to remain this way until she passes. This is it.
Right. Yeah.
And then you and I were on the phone.
That's right.
Like that second, as everyone's coming to me with all the stuff, all I could think of was talking to you.
And so when we talked before about this, not on the podcast, but we chatting about this,
right?
It was, if I would have known the details of this, thank God I didn't, because I would have agreed with them to let her go.
I didn't tell him about the pressors only because I didn't think it was relevant.
Oh, so for any medical folks that are going to listen to this, what he's talking about is maxed out on pressors. That's the term.
Right.
Maxed out on pressors. And what that is chemically keeping her alive to maintain a blood pressure. That's what it's doing. So your blood pressure had fallen so much that you needed to be flogged with these chemicals to maintain a blood pressure. So knowing if she was maxed out and then trying to get her to surgery, what Dr. Wynn was saying, even a healthy person is going to have a horrible chance to even make this. It's a coin flip.
Right.
With someone in this state, there's no way.
No chance. This will be one of Marcy's miracles.
No. This is I don't know if there's levels of miracles. I mean, we have our theologian over here, but this is the one where I thought, and when I wrote in my diary about a miracle happening, this was it.
Well, hold on. Let me back up before we get out over our skis on this. This will be one where Marcy will call it a miracle. I'm going to steal it from her. What are the chances that I get on the phone with all of these doctors and nurses, and I'll get into the story of what happened with them, and all I could think about was talking to Damon. So I tell him where we're at. And I say, it's sepsis and it's this, and they need surgery, but they won't give her the surgery. And Damon's like, you tell them, do you put them on the phone with me right now? We're going to get a surgeon, and then the story unfolds. Why? Because by some miracle, I forgot to tell him that she was maxed out on pressors. I didn't think it was relevant, so I didn't bring it up. I just was telling him what the situation was. Had I told him that, you might not be here right now. But I didn't, I wasn't withholding it. It just didn't come to mind. What are the chances that I would omit the one piece of information that would change the course of all? I did it accidentally, but what are the chances of that happening? I told you everything that they said to me. I repeated it. Just happened 60 seconds ago. Mm-hmm. I repeated it word for word so you could make an educated decision, and I left that part out.
What you have to realize too, if you know, I know you, and I've talked to you before. You were in dealing with this. You were in such, I would say, a catatonic state. I don't know if you were there to see him and watch him, but you were almost a shell of yourself, getting this information and trying to relay it to family, friends, Facebook, me on the phone. You're telling me so nonchalantly that they want to let her go, and there was zero. Not that you didn't have. There was zero emotion there because you just were not
trying to keep composed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You were trying to be. I mean, it was just one of those things.
Let me throw in the mix the part that right before I called you, because they were bombarding me with this stuff, and I said, "Okay, let me think." The nurse and the doctor, I said, you got to let me think. I said, first of all, somebody call Dr. Wynn and get him, which they did, and he was racing over. But I said, you guys got to give me a minute to think. So then the doctor and another doctor come in, and they're like, look, dude, we need permission. We want you to sign the thing. We need permission to let her go. We got to get on that path. This is going to be painful. And I said, okay, can you guys just give me 10 minutes? And they left the room, and I'm sitting there alone with her, and she's got tubes down her throat, and she's got more stuff hooked up to her. And I'm like, okay, so I got to figure this out. What do and I'm getting ready to call you because I'm trying to get my senses together on what we're doing. Then somebody else comes in, and it was like the head of ER or something. It's like, I hear we're having a problem with you making a decision. I said, you just got to leave me alone for 5 fucking seconds, man. I'm trying to get my shit together. I got to make a phone call. And I kept telling him, I'm not doing anything until I call somebody, which was you. Mm-hmm. So they leave and come back. This time they came back with the big fucking orderly guy and 2 of their security guards said, sir, you're not making rational decisions here. You know, you're going to upset we can't have you upset all of intensive care. The whole place can't be on edge because, you know, you're throwing a fucking fit. And I said, one last time, I said, all I'm trying to do is figure this shit out. Please give me a few minutes. I need to make a phone call. I gotta process this. Just give me a minute. And this time they wouldn't leave the room. And I fucking snapped. I told the guy, I said, I'm going to rip off your fucking arms and I'm going to beat you to death with your arms right here in front of everybody. So then they called the cops. The security guard stays in there. They call 2 officers who were there in the building. These guys come up with like their hands on their holsters and they're like, what's going on? I told them what was going on with her. I said, I'm just trying to get my head around this. Maybe they're right. Maybe I got to do this, but I'm not ready to give up yet. I got to process it. I need to make a fucking phone call. The cops turned on them and said, you guys all need to go home. Because this guy's going to fucking snap out and beat the shit out of everyone in here, and we're going to let him. We're not going to. Cops told them, leave this guy alone. Go home. Told the head nurse they called. Then they called the person down from the hospital, the director, and the cop said, you need to send this motherfucker home. Whoever's in charge of ER was making the biggest issue. Cop said, this guy's being an ass. Just send him home. The guy told that guy, you're off. We'll get somebody else.
Didn't my mom get that head nurse lady out of there also?
At one point, yeah, but nobody was there that day but me and for Ryan had finally woke up off the floor. That's when I was just beside myself and I knew that there was one last thing to do before pulling the plug was to call Damon. And then I just tried to reiterate everything I could tell him so he had all the information. I didn't know that I'd left out the presser thing. And Damon says, you need a surgeon who does this. So now remember, they had talked about a surgeon before when she was even in the other room. So what I learned during this time and later was they had sent out, I guess it's through an email at the time, or a link or something. Someone can pull up and say, you know, they just says it's a female, this many years old, this is her condition, have been going through chemotherapy for leukemia, and these are her vitals, and this is the situation, and we need a surgeon. And I think it was either 12 or 22 surgeons had emailed back, pass. I'm not even driving across town. That was when she was, you know, in the other room.
Better off, quote unquote.
Better off.
Yeah.
They said, no, she's not going to live through it. We're not doing it. Now they're trying again. And then now Dr. Wynn gets there and he's making phone calls. And for some reason, I think you had said, call Deanna, her regular doctor, and tell her what's going on and see if she knows. You said, just make the phone call, see what happens. So I just called her and let it go. I said, Deanna, this is the deal. And you got to see. And we hung up. No promises or nothing. We went back to, you kept saying, I'm saying this the wrong way. Damon kept saying, get a surgeon. That's the thing. Nothing else matters. And believe me, when I tell you he empowered me, when he emboldened me to stand in front of that door, no fucking way were you pulling the plug.
Right.
He said not to. We're done talking now. I don't care what anybody else says. We are now, Damon has said this, I will stand here with 2 swords in each hand and no one will take control of the situation. Damon said this. And they kept telling me, every doctor refused. Every doctor refused. There's no doctor that's going to. And I kept telling him, we can't get a surgeon that even wants to touch this. And the answer was always the same. We're not even driving across town. Why are you sending us this file? She'll be dead before I get across town. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to cut her open. She won't make it. That's dumb.
Going back to the situation where everybody is in your face and telling you to make a decision, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
I remember getting the phone passed to somebody. I don't know who that was, but I think it was another physician, I think from the ER.
It was.
And I told him to back off. And I said, that's person.
Right. Because you had heard me trying to be on the phone with you.
Right.
Arguing, going, shut the fuck up, man. You got to give me. And you said, and you've never done this. You have never interfered with another doctor's care.
Right.
You have never interfered and intervened with our stuff and said, well, let me weigh in here. I'm a doctor. And you've never done that. You've always been very sidelined and humble about your shit. In that moment, you said, put that fucker on the phone.
I probably didn't say that. But
well, that's how I heard it. And I said, here. And he goes, answer the phone. And whatever you said to that dude, he stopped. And that wasn't the top guy in ER, but that was one of the doctors that was controlling the other dudes, because they brought him later in the conversation to try to influence me. They're like, well, let's get him in here. That's who you talk to. And whatever you did worked, because he finally shut the fuck up.
That's when things turned around, and I heard back from you that there was a surgeon, and that was
right after that, Deanna had called in to Dr. Wynn, and she had called a doctor that we knew this doctor, and Deanna had said, she had called him and said, I've known you, he's been one of the greater surgeons in our area, and she says, I've known you 40 years. I've never called you for a favor, and I want you to go do this. And he goes, send me the file. He goes, I've already seen this. They sent it to me yesterday. Or he goes, I passed. She goes, I'm asking as a favor. He goes, it's a waste of time, but I'll go. Then I called Damon and says, we actually got a guy who's coming in, and I didn't associate the name. I should have told you that we know him. And he came in, and he walks in, this is hours later, and he walks in and he looks at me, he's like, you? And I go, he goes, holy shit, this is Mary? And I go, yeah. And then that changed things for him, because he knows us. He had no idea, because I go, you didn't know? He goes, they don't tell us the name. They just tell you the stats and, go do your thing. So I remember keeping you apprised at this. That finally, everybody had backed off. The surgeon was, in play now, and she hadn't moved and gotten worse. But at some point, he pulled me aside. I think it was because he knew me. I don't think this would be a regular doctor conversation. But he pulled me aside and said, she's not going to live through this. You know that, right? He goes, I'm going to try. He goes, but that, let's be clear on this before we begin. I want you to be mad at me. He goes, I said, I know. I remember telling him, I said, I know. Just do the best you can. That was it. It was just calm. And he took me aside and said that. And I think it was just because we were friends. And he just goes, all right. And by now, everybody knows she's not going to make it. So people are driving, flying, trying to get to us, her mother, her brother. I mean, everyone's trying to get here. A lot of people got here right before the surgery, and I went home and I got all the kids, and I had said, this is a story I've told before. I sat down with all the kids and I said, Mom's in a bad spot. She's probably not going to make it. I said, we have to go down to the hospital, and you guys all kind of got to say goodbye. And we drove down there. We went into the waiting room, and I brought each kid into the room. I sat them on a chair next to their mother, and I said, she can hear you. She just can't respond. She understands what you're saying, and she can hear you. So you go ahead and say everything you need to. And every kid took 15, 20 minutes and said all the things that they wanted to say. And then we all went back to the waiting room. When it came time, they took her away. And I asked the doc, I said, just to give me the time frame on this. And he said, well, I'm trying not to mess this up either. I think he said it should take like between 2 and 2.5 hours to do this. I think that's what he said. He goes, so if I come walking down the hall in 1 hour, things went bad. That's way too soon. He goes, if I'm not here in 4 hours, we're also in trouble. He says, so your window is right around here if things go well. So that was an exceedingly long time. in this waiting room. Friends were there, family was pouring in, and of course everyone's asking me, and I said, look, all I know is we have, it started at 2:00, and by 4:00, we should know something. If it's really soon, we're in trouble, and if it's really late, we're in trouble, and we're all in the same boat. I don't know any more than you guys. And the whole time, the kids keep looking at me, and I keep consciously having that, keep a stiff upper lip type of thing, because every time the kids look, I got to be casual, like everything's fine. And I almost hated that all through this cancer thing, and especially during the surgery. It's like, God, I just can't be me. I couldn't ever just let go for 5 seconds, because there was always someone watching. I was the stewardess, with the plane crashing. I had to look like everything was under control. And I vividly remember not liking that role of, God, just quit looking at me, because this is hard to lie and pretend everything's perfect. So I guess it was, I want to say we were 2.5 hours, coming up on 3 hours, and now everyone's starting to get a little bit more concerned because of the timeline. And I just got tired of being in that fucking room. And I walked out into the hallway, and I just stood there, and the waiting room the door to the waiting room is over here. I'm in the hallway, and I can see all the way, long fucking hallway, all the way down. And it just happens that in the ICU area, you could see all the way to one set of doors that went into surgery. I mean, I'm sure there was many sets of doors, but that was the way. And a guy named Wayne, who was my friend, came out, and he was there. Ryan came out. He finally walked out into the hallway and standing there with me. And we're just talking about stuff. And Wayne says, I said, I just need to get out of there, man. It's a small, stuffy room, and everyone keeps looking at me, and everybody keeps asking me questions. I don't know anything more than you guys do. I'm waiting. So I guess it was about the 3-hour mark or so. A guy comes through those doors, and he was still in his surgical, the blue stuff, the
scrubs.
Yeah, scrubs. And he comes walking, and I can't see that far very clearly without my glasses. So I remember asking Ryan, I go, is that the doctor? And he goes, I don't know, because he didn't know which, but Wayne did. And he goes, yeah, that's Dr. So-and-so. I can't remember his name now. Buxton. He goes, that's Buxton. I said, okay. So he comes walking up. I'm thinking, all right, we're at the right time frame. Roughly, we're okay. And by then, I think Wayne had told everybody the doctor's here. So now they're starting to file out into the hallway. And Deanna, her doctor, who knows Buxton and made the call, and Connie, her sister, who had been the angel sitting with her all those times, they came out first. So the doc comes up, and he's standing there, and they happen to end up on each side of him. And they've known this guy 40 years. They went to high school together. I mean, they knew this doctor. And I said, okay, so, what's the score, man? Before he even speaks, he starts crying. And he drops onto his knees. He falls down. The two ladies went down with him, holding his arm, like, oh my God, what's going on? Ryan blacks out again, right against the wall, just falls down. And they finally get him up, and he's sobbing. And I said, just say it. Just tell me. And he didn't say anything, just crying. And I finally said, Doc, you got to just tell me, did she die? He goes, no. And I said, what happened? What's the problem then? Is there a new problem? I'm thinking, God, what's next? And he says, he cleared up his face enough, and he goes, I've been a surgeon for 35 years or something. He says, I've seen miracles all the time. Stuff's unexplainable. I said, okay. He goes, never in my life have I seen the hand of God do something right in front of me. I said, what happened? And he goes, we told you about the pressors. You knew there was nothing we could do. We knew going in that she wasn't going to make it. We knew once we cut her open and we started doing our stuff and all of her vitals dropped, we had no way of bringing them back. So we go into the surgery, we start doing our stuff, and her vitals stayed pretty good. And then all of a sudden we're in it. I guess he said halfway is what he told me. And she coded. He goes, her just quit. Her heart stopped, and that was it. Just like all at once, there's nothing we can do to bring her back. There's nothing, I can't do anything. I mean, she's opened up and I can't, we just sat there and we very quietly walked to the other side of the room. He said, I took off my glove. We were quiet because no one talked. And he said, went to the other side of the room, took off his glove, getting ready to wash up and come out and tell me. And he said, her heart started. Behind us on the table, the monitors came up. Said, you got to stop. You're going to make me cry. He said, we turned around, didn't say a word. We put our stuff back on and raced back over there and finished the surgery. He goes, at that moment, I'd never seen the hand of God reach down and start someone's heart. And that's the way he described it. He said, just reached down and started her heart. He goes, never seen anything like it. He goes, now, I did finish the surgery, cleaned up everything. He said, her heart's still beating. He goes, I'm going to tell you two things. He said, there is no way she'll live till tomorrow morning. That's what I'm supposed to tell you by the situation we're in. There's no way. There's no reason she's alive now. He goes, as a doctor, I should tell you this is not going to hold. There's always complications with this stuff. In the first hour, the first 6 hours, he goes, it's just, I'm letting you know that this medically, she won't be here. She survived the surgery, but she won't be here tomorrow. I'm going to be fair with you about that. He says, but as a Christian, he said, there's no way God is letting her die.
Yep.
You're allowed to speak if you want. I'm getting all tweaked up over this. But he said, his faith, he goes, I know she'll be here. Medically, no way. He goes, but he came and he said, I want you guys to know, at that moment, he got very clear. He says, I didn't do this. If you think I saved her, I did not. He goes, if you think I did something, there's no science, there's no medicine. We didn't do anything to bring her to this point. This is 100% God.
And you were surrounded by believers, Christians, physicians, family, friends, village. Everybody was. And
those prayer groups that went out forever.
It was amazing. One thing that you had told me that you let down your guard at one point and you pretty much wrestled with God. I don't know when that was, but
before when she was going through it.
When she was going through it, so you were keeping that stiff upper lip. You were keeping everybody. You were the glue at that point for the family and holding it together. But I think you should talk a little bit about that part because you and I chatted about that as well.
Mad.
Yeah.
Wait, can I time out for a second?
Yeah.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Go ahead. The description that he gave me with that, when he did this motion, the doctor did this. He said, God reached in and grabbed her heart.
Yeah. When you told me that, I wondered if he actually saw something or he just
said he had his back to it. He told me, he goes, we were all walked away. We were done. We left the table. We walked over to clean up at the station or sink or whatever. And so it was behind him. He was very clear. He goes, it was behind. And all of a sudden he goes, this has been, when you ask him later, a couple days later as he's checking, I said, you probe a little more when you're thinking, Claire. And he had said, he goes, it was 2 or 3 minutes. He goes, we just didn't speak. We stood there for a little bit and everybody looked at each other and we waited. And then I kind of nodded like that was it. And we went over and started doing our thing. He goes, maybe 2 minutes had gone by. And then she's breathing. Her heart's beating. The monitors are beeping again. And we just turned around and looked at each other. Not a word. Put gloves on, mask, and go right back to pick up where we left off. Nobody said a thing the whole time until it was done. Yeah. So it was one of those situations where you could, no, I'm fine, thank you. It was one of those situations where all you can do is listen to the words he said because I wasn't there. But I've known that guy for 15 years. He's not a dishonest person. He never took any credit or glory for doing this, and he was a physical wreck when he came out of there. Couldn't even stand. He collapsed on the floor before he could talk, crying, sobbing. It wasn't.
Yeah, if you witness something like that, that's the only thing you can do. It just reduces you to
just nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. So
But
I mean, he told me that I know I'm getting that part right where he said, medically, I'm supposed to tell you the truth is, as a doctor, she's not going to live 24 hours. It won't happen. There's things that are going to come up in the next 6 hours that I always do. But I'm telling you, there's no way God's going to let her die after that.
Right.
There's just no way.
Right.
So that's where he left it.
I wonder if I have to pre-medicate her to.
I don't know. Go check her out. You're the doc.
Let me check that.
Tough to recall, my man.
Fuck yeah, dude. It's some grave stuff, man. And, you forget a lot of it, and then when it's refreshed in your memory, it's like, holy shit, man.
I can't believe how much we've remembered by going back over the Facebook post and the things that we said for that time. It just, it's and of course, the hard part, and Mary's listening to all this, she was out.
She was a vegetable during a lot of
She was not coherent for any of this, so it must be super weird for her to hear all of this happening as a third person.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're laying, and this is what happened to you, and this is what happened to you. I mean, that's just got to be an unnerving feeling to have all those things come about, and you weren't there to understand them or see them or reflect. You just had to hope for the best.
It's incredible how many people don't survive this shit. It's the rarity of her survival is, look how worked up emotionally we're getting about it, but it's all in gratitude. It's all in all in thankfulness. But man, all the poor people that don't survive.
But they kept, Marcy's been writing down miracles.
Yeah.
And you can call them a coincidence. You can call them an accident. You can call them what you want. But like that one that we brought up today, I never even knew until Doc came down this last trip. Yeah. He goes, we were recounting the story kind of in the kitchen, just remembering pieces. And he said, wait, what? And I said, what do you want? He goes, did you just say that they had given her all the pressors? And I said, oh yeah, that was a thing. And he goes, you never told me that.
Yeah.
We didn't until this last time. It's been 10 years. We didn't piece that together that was a thing.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
You still here? Still here, honey. Hey, guess what? I didn't let go.
I know. Thank you.
We're almost through this. We're almost there.
We're getting there. Iceman and I were just talking about how you and I didn't. Are you not letting Marcy back in?
Yeah, I just been with the dog.
That you and I didn't even know about that presser thing until it's been 10 years.
Until we talked last time we were down.
That's right. And you were like, we were telling the story, and you butted in and went, wait, what? And I went, oh, that was just a thing. And then you're like, had I known that,
I've been right there with it.
Gone a different direction. I had no idea that was even a thing until you put some pieces together recently. I had no idea.
Well, there's a lot of it that I'm hearing it for the first time. So it's so profound.
Just you can call it coincidences if you want, but when Marcy started totaling up miracles, I didn't want to stop telling what was going on, recounting the story, but maybe we missed 5 in there for all I know. It was just a comedy of errors and things. Like I had that you have no idea how much that pressure thing freaks me out, knowing now what you said 2 weeks ago. Because that's never been part of the discussion for 10 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're hearing it and just going, okay, well, yeah, I know it's bad. You already told me.
Yeah.
Right? So tell me something new. I know it's bad. But
and we told you my dad was on 3 pressors and wasn't supposed to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The miracle of him was even pales in comparison.
Pales.
Yeah.
Pales.
Yeah. And that's why I said what are the levels of miracles, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Where does coincidence turn into a bona fide miracle into we all saw water turn into wine or Lazarus rise.
Right.
Whatever.
We'll just start calling you Lazarus.
To get back settled into where we were with that, and maybe I'm a little more together where I can say it. And Damon, we kind of talked a little bit before during the break, was that the doc never said he witnessed it. I mean, he wasn't visually staring. He very clearly had given up, walked away. A couple minutes had gone by where she was no heartbeat, no breathing, no nothing. And then things just started to go again, and he did this. He did the motion. He goes, I never have seen the hand of God reach in and start someone's heart, but there's no other way that could have happened. Science did not do that. As a doctor, there's nothing we could do. He goes, I want to tell you right now, that was nothing but between her and God. And he was very clear on that point. And they finished the surgery. He came back out. He collapsed. We talked, and then he said, and goes, she won't make it 24 hours, but spiritually, I know she's going to,
because he witnessed that, and if he could see that happen,
he's like, no way. His thing was, no way would God save her in that manner just to let her die 12 hours later from something dumb. This is just, and the story begins to unfold after that. Like her mother had, once the doc came out and we went through that, her mother had complete faith that she was going to be fine. Like the whole way. No more interruptions, no more. She just had this look about her like everything's going to be okay. Once she saw everything that happened, what we got to with the doctor, the miracle and the thing, and she'd already known about the miracle, about the clusters being gone. She said, no, she's here for a reason. She's going to be fine. Her faith was unwavering at that point. Never a question. Hardly ever a tear. Just absolutely knew that it was like, okay, we're good now. Where the rest of us were still like, okay, well, I know what you're saying, but we got to watch. And there was some as she began to be in recovery. She made it the 24 hours, no other complications, and then they brought her back into that same glass room as before, and people were able to begin to visit, and numbers were beginning to slowly return to better numbers were coming up, and things. They weren't like, well, we're going to have to go back in late. No, there was no discussion of that. Everything was okay. She had, what's that bag called that they gave her? Colostomy bag, which I didn't know. I never even knew what one of those was until I learned this. And there was some funny things that happened along the way, little tidbits of humor in between the stress. At the time, this was really dumb. At the time, we had an insurance lady. I can't remember her name now. And she was like 45 years old and very well packaged, and we're all standing there in these moments, and she comes walking down the hall. This is after you were out of surgery a day, but all family and friends are still there. There's still 85 of us there, and she's come walking down this hall in this short skirt with her boobs hanging out of some dress she was in, and she's carrying 2 plants. She's carrying 2 plants like this, and she's with her makeup and she's asking for me. I see who she is, and I'm like, don't do this to me right now, because her brother's there, and he's like, who the fuck's this asking for you? I'm like, it's not my girlfriend or something. This is our insurance lady. And I'm like, hey, it's nice of you to show up. You do realize in ICU, they're not going to let you bring a plant in. You can't carry. She had 2 live plants in her hand. She wanted to decorate the ICU. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to tell you to take those home. And I'm trying to assure everybody this isn't just some woman I know. It's like, and they're like, oh, sure. Why would your insurance lady be here? I'm like, I don't know why my insurance lady's here. I don't know. And so, you're brushing off things as they happen like that. The other one was when she finally, and I know we're getting things out of order, so we'll back up, but then she becomes coherent one day, and she started looking around the room, and of course the doctor's talking with her. It's like, do you know your name, and do you know where you are? And she did that. And then in the room, I think it was just myself, your sister, your mother, and maybe one other person at that time. And so the doc had done all this stuff, and he says, do you recognize where you are? Do you recognize these people? And she says, oh, it's my mom. And your mother cries and says, oh, it's my sister. And he cries, and it's like, oh, it's my daughter or somebody. And Megan was there, and she cried. And she looks at me and she goes, who are you?
Oh my God.
And I went, stop being funny. And the doctor says, you don't know who this man is? She goes, no. And she goes, should I? And he goes, well, yeah. I said, what? I said, I thought she was joking. And she goes, no, I don't. I said, well, we're married. And she's like, no. And then she went off and was thinking 3 days of this as she was coming out of it, 3 days in a row. By the third day, I was getting tired of this. I'm like, okay, let me just spell it out for you. My name's tattooed on you. Your name's tattooed on me. We have children, and I have a wedding certificate. So I don't care what you remember. Nice try, but I have paperwork on you. We're married. And then it was somewhere in the middle of that third day, she all of a sudden remembered who I was, and we had a big meltdown at that moment. But, boy, your mother thought, well, if she doesn't remember you, maybe she can marry somebody respectable now.
She was sure she could have done better. I could have pulled something better than
your
this.
Sister thought this was a free pass out of the marriage. Like, well, it's, it happens from time to time, and we'll just, hopefully she'll get a better guy next time. And I seriously thought she was faking it at first, and then I realized she had no idea who I was at all. So that was one of the
scary. On your end.
A little bit. I'm like, okay, I've literally done a lot here. I've done a ton of shit right here. Yeah. Thank you is what I'm looking for, not who are you.
Oh, man.
So, but we got through that. And it was shortly after that, when she was still in the hospital, that it was, I
remember waking up in the ICU, and Deanna was next to me.
She was there a lot.
And we talked, and but nobody told me about the ileostomy bag yet. And we were just sitting and talking, and she was just being there. I was groggy. I don't remember talking very much. But then I got that hospital, where I felt the walls were closing in this
psychosis
ICU,
thing.
It's a very real thing, and I remember looking at her, going, "I have to get out of this room." I wasn't even up very long, but I go, "I have to get out of this room." At the same time, the cleaning lady came in. The cleaning lady for the ICU room came in, and she was cleaning around my bed, and she noticed I was up, and Deanna was there, and she said to me, she goes, "You're up?" And I said, "I am." And she says, "Every day that you were in this ICU room and I prayed over your bed." She prayed over me while she cleaned my ICU room. And this is a person that doesn't even know who I was. And I thanked her, and she started crying. And
didn't she ask to give you a hug or something? Like, could I please hug you? Or she did,
or hold my hand.
Something
I
like
just want to
that,
touch you. And I said, sure. And she touched my hand, and I never saw her again. It was kind of like an angel coming into the room and an angel leaving. I never saw the lady before that day, ever. But she told me she was in every day to clean.
When Damon talks about, we touched on it last episode, a little bit this one, because I think Damon and I were the only one trying to keep track for a while, was the extrapolations of prayer chains and prayer groups that people that would email or comment in the Facebook, and all of a sudden there was 1,000 people in South Carolina, and they would chime in every day. They were still faithful, still praying. Then there was 300 people in a church in Texas going, "We heard your story, read your stuff," praying daily, and they would chime in every time saying, "We're still here." And it was just to where I finally put my pencil down. I couldn't calculate how far this prayer chain had gone for you. I mean, you get lost over 10, 12,000 people all over the country, and you just I can't keep track anymore. And they were there every day reading and commenting and saying something or a text message. And it was, I always forget that part of it till Damon reminds me that what we call the prayer warriors thing, we talk about, that was such a real thing of people that really tried to ask God to help you. It was a lot.
The next thing I remember is it was Super Bowl Sunday. I was in a regular room. Do you remember? I watched.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
It was the Denver Broncos. I even remember.
I remember that before you left that ICU room, though, that's when I started to understand the scope of the miracles that you'd lived through, the ones that were obvious to everybody, by the number of people that kept coming in. And of course, in ICU, it isn't public, but the number of staff, the number of people, that one lady who was, I don't know, she was in charge of nursing for 35 years there. We'd never seen her before. Excuse me. And she just walks in one day and sticks her head and introduced herself. She goes, I've been at this hospital 35 years and I'm in charge of nurses or something. And I said, okay. And she goes, I just wanted to meet the person that went through what I've been hearing in the hallways about. And I was like, what'd you hear? I mean, I knew the miracle, but she's like, no, even back to the cell clusters. She knew that it was and then the hand of God thing. And that became a deal where people just kept filing in saying, we heard about this and we want to see you. It was really impressive, the number of people that took the time to come over, and say something.
Didn't you run into some physicians as well?
Sure. Tons.
That heard about it in town?
Yeah. That drove over, yeah. And more so after she got out of the ICU and was in a regular room, that became a regular thing. They're like, and somebody
got by and introduced themselves.
Yeah, and there was somebody who wanted to write something about it in a medical journal, and there was some guy who everybody wanted to cut you open after it was over. They're like, we would like to do some experiments on you to see if we can replicate how your body got rid of these cell groups, and we'd like to do it for everybody. I'm like, well, it's up to her, and she goes, no. Pass. I'm tired of being poked and prodded at. And it just happened to not drag the story ahead. It happened for weeks and weeks and weeks. Even when I went back to work in my shop, there was people that would come by, and I think I told that story of the two doctors in my office. The one I knew the guy, and the other one was
that's what I'm thinking of,
talking to each other, and they're like, "Hey, man, did you hear about that miracle over there at the place with the stuff?" And he goes, "What are you talking? The lady who had the cell, and then the hand of God, and the Buxton says that she was dead and she came back to life. You hear about her?" And then the dude's like, "Yeah, that's his wife." He points and goes, and it's like, "No," and he goes, "Yeah," because it was a thing. And then people would say, they would come in talking about it and going, "Wait a minute, that's you? That's Mary?" Because they knew her and they didn't know that was the name of the person. So the story circulated, but without the name. Apparently, it didn't. No one said they weren't passing along her name on that. But yeah, so you got out of ICU.
Yeah, I was in a regular room.
Went to a regular room.
I remember watching Super Bowl, and I wanted to go home.
Yeah,
I was done. I wanted to go home. So this was like a week and a half after the surgery,
I guess. Yeah, about that.
And they kept telling me, "You can't go home. You have to go through rehab." I go, I got to go home. And I was on morphine. Dr. Buxton came in. I remember having the conversation with him, and he goes, "You can't go home until you're off morphine." I said, "Then get me off of it." I told him, "I want cold turkey. I want off of it. I don't. I want to go home." I said, "I don't want to be here anymore." And he says, "Well, we have a few things we got to do." And I said, "Okay." So then I guess it was a nurse that came in to tell me about the ileostomy bag. But what I remember so much about that was that she was so cold about it. Very like, "This is how you're going to clean it. This is how you're going to take care of it. You're going to have to live with this, da 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 da." And I'm just sobbing. Like, then it's like there, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm crying because I didn't feel confident with this at all, going home with this thing. But all I knew is that I wanted to go home and go home to my family. I didn't want to be in the hospital anymore. So
didn't they give you a thing like you have to walk 3 laps?
That's what I was going to say. Something. He told me I had to be off morphine for 24 hours. I had to be able to get out of the bed and walk to the bathroom and back. And then he says I had to go to the door and back. And then he says I had to walk 5 steps outside the door in the hallway and come back. I said, okay. And I didn't realize how hard that was until I wanted to go home. And so I went off the morphine, which was really hard. And they had to remove the drain in my side for where they had the staples. And that was very painful. he said, Dr. Buxton said he wasn't going to do it. He's going to let the nurses do it. And I said, okay. So 2 of the nurses that I had known came in and they said, before we get you off morphine, we're going to do this. And I said, all right. And just them tugging on it, I was screaming. I mean, just a tug.
This wasn't the thing in your chest, right?
No, it was down here, the drain in my abdomen.
All right.
And you weren't there. It was just the 2 nurses.
No, I wasn't there for that.
And just them tugging on it, I was screaming. And I said, okay, I pumped as much morphine as they allowed me to have. We waited a little bit. I remember having a nurse right here next to my face. I had her hand, and the other nurse was down by my feet or my abdomen, ready to pull the thing. And I said, we're going to go on my count. And when we do it, you just keep pulling if I scream. I go, just keep going. And I counted down, and I gripped that nurse's hand as hard as I could, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, and it felt like it was the longest scream ever, and it felt like she was pulling my insides out. It's what I feel like I remember, in her pulling and pulling and pulling, and then the relief of it being out. And then I just remember, I think I just blacked out after that. I don't remember them being in the room after that or whatever, but I knew I had to get the drain out, so that was it. And then I think the next day I worked on getting out of bed and how weak I was and how difficult it was just to walk to the bathroom door and coming back. And then a few hours later, they got me up again, and I got to the door and back. And I'm not talking like I got up, bounced up, walked to the door. It was like a very slow process.
Shuffle.
And then they let me get back down, and I rested. And then the next thing was, within a 24-hour period, I pushed myself out that door and walked that hall. I know within 24 hours I had those discharge papers.
Yeah.
This is where it comes, where we came home, and
I didn't want her to go. I told her, I said, you can't,
it was against
you
their
can't
wishes,
leave yet.
too.
Everyone is telling you not to go. And I want to say, too, that when I'm telling you about the run-ins that I had with staff, I'm not telling you by all it was this entire hospital and the entire staff. It was probably 4 or 5 people out of 300 that were complete assholes to me. Every other staff person had been wonderful. Every other care that we had been given from people there on all the other occasions was exemplary. I'm just telling you, I ran into some people that were just dead set on fucking me up with this shit and wouldn't leave me alone. I want to be clear on that. I'm not downplaying an entire hospital. They were great. Hospital was awesome. But the same thing comes true to here, is that they're coming in telling me, now they're telling me she needs to stay. You got 4 or 5 people going, dude, you can't, she needs to be here, and she shouldn't go home. And now again, and still fresh in my mind, is the last time she talked me into doing something, moving her into a chair. Didn't work out so well. So I'm a little hesitant to go to bat for her again, going, they're telling you to stay and this is not good. And she had a discussion with one of the doctors right in front of me. He's like, is there any physical problem with me going home? No. Is there any medical risk? Well, not really. You're just going to be in a lot of pain. You need to be here where we can, keep the pain low while you're recovering. And, this is the main thing. Should anything go wrong, we're here, but we don't anticipate anything. There's no medical reason to keep you other than you shouldn't be up running around right now. And you need morphine. And she just said no. She told me, go get the car. So that was, she had completed everything she was supposed to do as far as walking or morphine or shuffling and going to the bathroom by herself, whatever goal they put in front of her. The doctor goes, she did it. She technically can go. So I said, all right, well, so we went and got the car.
I was in a walker, remember?
Yeah.
I had a walker. I was so weak.
Well, I think they wheelchaired you to the door.
They did, but then I had to use the walker to get into the house, and
but I had to
forever.
Pick her up and set her in the seat, and we drove off, and I remember her, like, you were looking at the sky and just, because you'd been inside for so long that you were just blinded by the blue sky and couldn't believe you were out. And, all the stories, we of course had caught her up on all the stories that had happened while she was unconscious. So she's still processing all that, like what happened to her. And then she wanted an In-N-Out cheeseburger.
Which I took one bite, I think, and that was it.
But you made me stop and get you a cheeseburger, so we did. And the problem at home came, getting her home, got her in the house, was that we had a reclining chair in the living room that went pretty flat. It reclined pretty far. And she got in that, and then she said, got to get up, got to get down. The bathroom couldn't get comfortable. Finally, she said, you got to take me upstairs to the bedroom. She goes, I want to be in my bed. All right. So I carried her upstairs, put her in bed. She wasn't even there half an hour, and she goes, put me back downstairs.
She's getting your workout in.
I was like, what the fuck, man? Pick a spot.
Lay straight with all the staples that I had. What do you say, 35 staples?
Yeah, it was a long scar.
From right under my rib cage to the pubic area was the incision, and there was like 35. I think he said 35.
Plus, you had this
one in my belly, but
plus you had this bag that you had to always worry about. The bag on the side. Do you lay? Do you turn? Do you? So this became a thing.
And I had a big bandage, and then I had to change that. But laying down flat hurt so bad, it like pulled
so
everything.
I carried her back downstairs again and put her in the chair and said, okay. And I think we tried for a couple of days to figure out, and I kept saying, go back to the hospital. I kept saying, they're not going to give you morphine here, go back to the hospital. And she wouldn't go. She wouldn't talk about it. But she was, the best way to describe it is she was whimpering like an animal, like a hurt animal. No matter where you were in the house, she was all the time. It didn't stop. She was in pain. She was hurting. I'm like, okay, you got to stop this. We got to go back to the hospital. She wouldn't go. And I go, you're just crying. Sometimes she was crying, and sometimes she was whimpering, but it never stopped. It was just all the time. And I finally realized it was on the third day. I said, because the kids were absolutely going bananas. Going, do something. They're girls. My girls are crying because they can't do anything. Do you want ice? Do you want a heating pad? Do you want me to rub your feet? What are we supposed to be doing? Because she's just crying the whole time. And it finally got to a point where I said, okay, I told her she was different positions in this chair was making her as comfortable as possible, she said. And I remember standing in front of her, I think it was the third day, I said, I'm going upstairs and I'm shutting the door. And I'm turning the TV on loud and I'm putting a pillow over each ear. I cannot listen to you cry anymore. If you're not going to go back to the hospital, they told you to stay. I said, you can't make me go through this again. If you need me for something medically, I'm there. But I cannot listen to my wife suffer in pain 24 hours a day and tell you I can't do this anymore. It's absolutely driving me bonkers. I just wanted to go back to the hospital and get the pain medicine. She still refused to go. She did that almost 2 weeks, off and on for the first 7 days, constant, 24 hours a day. And then you get a little bit of a break, but it took 12 days for it to go away, almost 2 weeks. And then finally she was beginning to tolerate the pain and finally subsided enough. She could have spent those 12 days in the hospital on morphine, and she just refused. She just was going to be home.
How much of that do you think was withdrawals?
Probably quite a bit.
Withdrawals
from the morphine, getting rid of that so quickly. It's kind of like a rebound effect, so it makes the pain actually worse.
Well, she toughed it out and she did it. And I just told all the kids, I go, shut your doors, put your headphones on. Just there's nothing we can do. I explained it to him. She won't go back and get the pain medicine, and this is just it. I told him, I can't hear it anymore. I'm done. And every morning, you get up and check on her, do her stuff, and she had no medical issues.
Yeah, tell them about the kids staying home with me too. They took turns staying.
Yeah,
home.
They took turns because it was school time,
and I couldn't go to the bathroom completely by myself.
You couldn't leave her alone. She could not be alone. So I said the kids took 1 day of school off. Like one son would say, okay, everybody else go to school. I'll stay home with mom today. Then you take tomorrow off. And then he'll go back to school for the next, 7 or 8 days. And that allowed me to, again, try to go back to the shop and do stuff and get, keep going, make an income and pay our bills. And so the kids had a very good balance of helping her. And they all were very attentive. None of them were off playing video games they all stayed right by her side and did things correctly. And kept bringing you back.
Yeah, and before I left the hospital, I asked Dr. Buxton what's the soonest I could... I asked him if I was going to live with this ileostomy bag the rest of my life, and he said no.
That's right.
Then I said, so what's the soonest I could have this ileostomy bag reversed? And he said, April.
And you said, schedule me.
I said, I'll see you in April. And he goes, whoa. He goes, you're going to have to.
She did. At that moment, he goes, probably the first week in April. She goes, schedule me.
I said, spring break. I'll see you on spring break. And he just went, he goes, one, you have to gain some weight. Because I had lost, I was down to 130. I think I lost 50. I went in at 185, a little heavy. So I was down to 130.
Yeah.
Is that right? I can't even do the 130. He says, you're going to have to put on some weight because he goes, you can't do that. And at that time, I was drinking Ensures. I wasn't even really drinking or eating a whole lot of solids. So he goes, you're going to have to gain some weight. You're going to have to heal. We're going to have to run some tests just to make sure everything's healing okay. But I said, I'll see you spring break.
But here's the deal. Then again, he gives her these goals of what you have to do. You need to be able to walk and get up and be on your feet for an hour or something. You have to gain some weight. You have to. He said all these things. This is where it has to be. And you have to be at these levels. And then she starts doing it, just like in the hospital when they said, when you walk 3 laps, you can get out of here. She was determined to walk 3 laps. She attacked this with the same veracity. She said, give me the numbers you're looking for, and I'll get there by April. And then she did.
I did. So I was back in the hospital spring break. He was very surprised and very happy. And I had the reversal surgery. But that's like, it's 2 steps forward, and here's another surgery, and you're back. I had surgery in January, and here we're having another surgery in April. And it's in through the same incision. Not as big, he said, but we'll be cutting the same incision. So it felt like everything that I was fighting to get ahead of, it was just getting harder.
You knew you were going to have another setback. You knew it was going to be another surgery and a little bit of a step back. One funny story that they had some people come out like 2 times a day or something to change her bag. That was part of the program and stuff. And then, so, I'm watching the nurses do it and seeing how they clean it and the size different stuff. And it was like one time on a Friday night on a long weekend or something, all of a sudden you called me and the bag broke or did something, and she was like, oh my God. So, I clean everything up and I wipe her down. And then it was the weirdest thing because she's pooping right out of the side of her stomach. I'm like, okay, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I'm not thinking much of it. It's a medical condition. I didn't bother me, but it was like, okay, that's something you don't see every day. Then all of a sudden she goes, my bag's ruined. And I went, oh shit. So I'm digging through all the supplies because the lady had left a box of stuff there. And she goes, she's all of a sudden on the phone with Deanna going, they won't come back out. They're closed for the weekend. Their on-call person isn't answering, and we got this bag and the stuff. And I come walking in, and she's on speakerphone. I'm like, I got this. I could do this. And she's like, you can do that? I go, I can do this. I've watched him do it 100 times. No problem. And, then I think Deanna was on the phone going, are you sure you can do this? Because, look, if I can change a water pump gasket on a small block Chevy, I can do this. This is simple. So they didn't have any of the seals that fit. They had one of those universal cut-it-yourself seals. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so I'm just talking while she's watching. Look, it's got to overlap a little bit. It's got to be around the outside. You don't want to block the whole sun, but you got to have a little on the outside for the thing to stick to it. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going through this whole thing, and she's looking at me, and after a minute, I'm cutting and getting and cleaning everything up. And I said, you with me? She goes, you are so full of shit. She goes, you're going to fuck this up. I go, what's the worst that can happen? I got to try again? I'm not going to kill you here. And so I cut everything up. I sealed up the bag to the thing. I sealed it up to the deal and let it sit there. And then I put it on. I put it on her side, and we're staring at it. And she's like, what do we do now? I go, guess we wait to see if it works. You got to poop again? And she's like, I don't have any control over this. So then we just had to wait. And the next time that her body went through the motions, everything was fine. I called those ladies and said, save your money. Don't come back. Just drop off the supplies. I got this. And I did like all the rest of them until she went back. But yeah, that was a funny moment. But I had this. How bad could it be? I mean, how bad could I mess this up? It's not that hard.
I got to give it to you. So I did wound care in the hospital for a lot of years, and we would work with the ileostomy and colostomy bags. We'd kind of go in and help with that. Those things with the right stuff are not always easy to seal. So I got to hand it to you. Making your own first try, that's impressive.
Gasket.
And
that is impressive.
We had accidents. Actually, in Buxton's office, I had an accident where you have to wear sweats too. You can't wear any other Remember, it busted. Went to a doctor visit, and it busted open and went all over. And I just sat there so like humiliated, and I couldn't do anything about it.
I know, and it's just like,
and you got to burp them.
I said, this fucking thing leaks. I'm gonna go get some silicone out of the garage. We'll seal this shit up. You know. But first try, got it right. Did a bunch of them after that. There was some that came apart like, you know, a day or two later for whatever reason. But it did on the pros too. The ladies that were doing it, they didn't always get it right.
Yeah. It's not easy. That's for sure.
And then they left the catheter in my chest for another year, 6 months.
It was a long time.
For a while, just to make sure that everything was.
And wasn't that the one when they pulled it out of your chest was like 12 feet long or something? It was.
It felt like it.
She goes, they just kept. I wasn't there. And she goes, they pulled it out.
They put it in under surgery, but they pulled it out with me awake.
Yeah, and you said it like just kept coming and coming. Like
That's
what?
A very weird feeling to have that taken out.
So. We go through all this stuff, the little stuff. She does the next surgery. Oh, well, and obviously the doctor, Wynn had said we needed 4 treatments after maintenance chemos. And I said, I'm pretty sure you're done with that. He goes, yeah, her body can't take any more. That's it. And then it became a question of, well, we didn't do all the treatments. Is leukemia going to come back? And he goes, I don't know. He goes, I will tell you that normally the maintenance chemotherapies are literally just there for maintenance. They do not do the killing part of this. That was done in the beginning, and we did get 2 maintenance ones done. He goes, I could never tell you for sure, but I don't think those second 2 would have mattered one way or the other as much. I think if we got it, we got it, he said. I said, okay. And I was kind of like, all right, well, didn't matter that we didn't get it, because that's what I was looking for, was like, not like, sorry, now because you've had the surgery and you can't take chemo anymore, you're going to die. And I was waiting for that. And he's like, no, not at all. It was complete, not even on his radar. So no more maintenance chemo. The surgery was done in April, and they put her insides back together and began to slowly, there's the building process. And
the only last thing I remember was when he took the staples out. Remember, we had to go back.
Had to go back for the staples. That's right.
And that was very painful, but
I think after she was all done, and maybe I've got the timing wrong, 6 months or so after she had her last thing done in the hospital, it's like, okay, you're done. You just go back to your oncologist for your checkups and let's see how things go. I made her go back to the hospital, and she didn't want to go. She was kicking and screaming, and I go, look, you fucking won. You kick this thing's ass. And I know she's like, I'm never going back to that building. And it's a bad experience. And you walk in there with fucking confidence, and you walk back like you own that motherfucking place. You walk around that thing with nothing attached to you. You're gonna walk back in those steps owning it now, not hiding from it.
Yeah, and you walked me to the waiting room where everybody was waiting.
She didn't know where that was. She had no memory of those things. So I showed her all of the things. I said, this is where Buxton fell to the ground. This is where we were waiting. This is where your mother was sitting. This is the one weird room you were in. We walked through all those. And when we got to the floor, when we got to the actual floor where she had spent most of her time, that 3rd floor deal, she walked up and all the nurses just swarmed her. They remembered who she was, everything. They were hugging her, and it was the most healing moment you could have ever hoped for. And she walked out of that hospital kind of flipping it off, going, I'm not afraid of this hospital anymore. I'm not afraid to drive by it and shake as I know. That was we covered it with that moment. And then that was the last time we went there. And then that's when you started, they wanted us to do those speeches and those light the night things. They wanted you to do presentations over the next 5 years.
Yes.
They had they wanted to hear your story. And I don't know if we can go back to things we overlooked. Obviously, there's moments I'm sure we skipped over, not trying to do this out of chronological order, but I'm famous for fucking up my own plans. There was one big one, and was it at the fairgrounds? Mm-hmm. There was a big
the American Cancer Society.
The American Cancer Society came to town, and they were the heavy hitters.
They were launching a campaign.
They were getting ready to launch a new national campaign,
and I was the keynote speaker.
You were, and this was a big fucking crowd, and she had told this story over and over and done it tons of times, and she gets there. This is also the weirdest thing, is that the day that we were there for this, was exactly the anniversary of the day the doctor had, and I'll get the day wrong. Was it like January 10th, let's say? He said, you have the doctor, Dr. Wynn had told me during the first year after leukemia, 50-50 chance. He goes, you make it 1 year, and now we've got like a 67% chance, he told me, or some number. You go to 3 years, he goes, after 5 years, he goes, you're at my success rate with my patients is like 98.9%. He goes, you make it 5 years, we're good to go. And it just so happened on the day that this event was happening was exactly to the day her 5th year. So we're getting ready to do this big event. There's people talking, and I don't know how many thousand people in the room and doing all this stuff. And all of a sudden, as in the middle of all of their presentations, she leans over and goes, I'm not doing it. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I can't say this story one more time. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it ever again. And I said, well, you're the person, you're the keynote speaker here. You can't just, she goes, I'm not getting up there. I said, and the people from American Cancer Society were like, they were heavy on this story of, they had come to us and said, hey, after the show, after the event, we want to talk to you about putting you on a national campaign. We wanted to put you out there for doing something nationally. And, it was going to be a sponsored gig and stuff. And we were all, okay, yeah, we'll talk to you. And then in the middle of it, she just goes, I don't even want to talk to those people afterwards. I don't want to do this. And I said, well, you got to get up on stage. She goes, I'm not going up there. I said, what do you want? She goes, you go do it. I said, I am not doing it. No, this is your story from your perspective, your angle. And she just started to cry. And right there, I said, all right, now my switch flipped, and I'm like, all right, no one's making her go up there. So they introduce her, and I walk up, and I said, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And the lady's like, well, why? I said, yeah, well, plans changed. Go sit down. Go on. And I remember I told the entire story, kind of like we were talking about it here. I bet it took the better part of an hour to tell it to that point. And I'm walking up and down the stage with the microphone, and I'm talking. Every woman in there was crying, just like what happened with this. And but I remember it I told it in a way that you couldn't tell if she lived or died. I didn't say what had happened. And I got to the point about the surgery and the hand of God, and she wasn't going to live another 24 hours. And I kind of just paused at that point in the story, and everyone's going, did she make it? Did she, they're looking at you like, did she live? And I said, one of the things that the oncologist had told me in the beginning before all this had happened was that if, she makes it a year, it's a 50-50. If she lives through all this, and then in 2 years and 3 years and 5 years would be, the good thing. So we knew that even going into these surgeries and all these things, we knew that the chances weren't good anyway. So if she didn't make it, it wasn't going to be a huge surprise. It just would be terrible. But what we kind of knew, that's what was going on. And so I'm leading them to believe that she didn't make it in that statement. And then I said, and he very clearly, I repeated it. I said, it was funny that he said, if you can make it 5 years, you got a 98.9% chance. So we waited and waited and waited for that morning, wake up that morning of that 5th year anniversary, because that's the day you're waiting for. And I stopped. And then I said, it just so happens by pure coincidence, today was that day, and she's sitting right there. Place went nuts. I mean, 1,000 people screaming and cheering and running towards her. Everybody went towards her, and it was just it was a moment. And then the Cancer Society people were like, this is it. This is the thing. We need to do this all over the country, and this is what a powerful message. And we can get donations, and we can get supporters, and she just goes, I'm never talking about it again. And they went, do you not understand the significance of your story? Was this one guy says, God gave you this story and did all these things. Now you can share it with everybody. She goes, I'm never telling the story again, ever.
Till now.
It's been 5 years from that point. But we're 10 years past it. We're 5 years past the last thing. And she looked at me. She goes, take me to the car. And I just took everybody's business card, and I politely excused ourselves. I shook everybody's hand, and she talked to everybody who wanted to come meet her, and say she waited, everybody till the crowd stopped. And when we were done, she goes, take me to the car. And we never looked back. We never returned phone calls. We just kept telling people no for the next year. Anybody wanted to interview her or do something, we just politely said no, thank you. And she never talked to, until right now, until this moment, we've never put the whole story together. On live streams, I've told a little here, right, 10 minutes there, but neither one of us have ever put the entire context together. And now that we've done it for the first time in forever, it's amazing all of the people or all of the players in this story that came in at just the right times and the circumstances. How did Deanna call a doctor and she made him do it? She goes, you owe me a favor. I've never go do this. Otherwise, no surgeon. Had I not accidentally not told you about the pressors, you would have said, don't even bother calling a surgeon. How did that happen? How was my words and your thought? And then how did you embolden me to push me down that road? It's like you wound me up and then threw me out there and said, go do this. And then nothing changed from that. This is the thing that's happening. How did that occur? How did Connie, who was our daughter's school teacher, end up being the sister of our primary care physician, and then sat with her every single day and never left her side? How was it that when she was fighting off that psychosis, and she'd tell me all the time, I can't be in this room, I can't be in this room, I can't be in this room, then all of a sudden out of nowhere, Iceman decides, he's like, yeah, I'll do this, I'm going to go there. And then she says, what a blessing for him to show up every day he was available. She says that's the only way she made it through that time, was having someone to talk. She was already losing her mind, and then there's a friend who's comforting, who's willing to, and he just sat there for 6 hours doing whatever she wanted. You want to play cards, you want to talk, you want to watch TV. He was totally with what she wanted to do. And who else does that? Who else goes and sits for 6 hours for a friend? Come on. It was incredible when you now tell the whole story and you put it together, the things that came together. You couldn't have planned it almost any better to deal with everything that came up.
No, you couldn't have planned it at all.
Couldn't have planned that. Yeah.
Just amazing to say, oh, well, this is a situation. Okay, well, I need a surgeon who doesn't want to do the surgery. Oh, sure, you're going to find one. I need a doctor on a phone from Reno that's going to guide me. Can I get a doctor to guide me on the phone right now? Who does that? But everything fell into place right when it needed to be there. And I don't know where we're at with the miracle count, but if someone told me it was in the 30s, I wouldn't be surprised. Because I'm sure we're missing the little stuff that you just don't expect.
Yeah.
So
guess what? In 9 days, on January 10th, it's going to be 10 years.
Wow.
Is this the 10-year one in 9 days?
It'll be my 10 year. Coming up.
I will tell you too, one time I drove her, after the 5 years, we're driving around town, and I pulled into Dr. Wynn's office. And she's like, what are you doing? I said, you got to say something to the dude. And just walked back in, and he dropped his stuff, walked right over to her. He was talking to somebody, just started hugging her right then. I went in after that in about 7 or 8 years, and I walked in. I said, I want to talk to Dr. Wynn. Like, what do you need? I just want to talk to him. He goes, well, he's very busy. I said, tell him Mark Mendenhall's here. Goes in and comes out, and he goes, what's going on? He thought that she died. He thought she passed away because I showed up. I said, and there was a waiting room full of people, and I said, I just want you to know she's fine. I go, you saved her life, and she was fine, and everybody gave her 0 chance at living. 0 chance. And she's here. And everyone's, of course, listening. And I said, so every one of you that he gave a chance, you're going to make it. He gave her 0 chance, and it still happened. It wasn't supposed to happen. 0. And she's still here, and I just want to stop by to tell you thank you, and I'm still thinking about you. He's just emotional over it, but I did stop by to tell him that we didn't forget about him. I did stop by to let him know that he called you one of 2 patients. What was that? There was 2 special patients in his whole career.
I don't remember.
He said, because he was on stage for something, and he says earlier on, he goes, her, pointing to Mary, and one other lady that he had talked about, it goes, are the most, I'll never forget these two patients forever because of some set of miracles that happened. And he goes, it's just amazing to see it. His whole message was that it can happen for any of you. Don't give up hope, ever. Right. And, yeah, so it was 10 years in 9 days.
It's going to be 10 years already.
Well, I guess that covers most of it. What, are we forgetting anything? Is there a story that we left out?
I don't know. So overwhelmed right now.
The only, I wouldn't say you can never say the only good part and the only bad part. There's many of both, I'm sure. But something that's really irritating that came out of all this. I mean, blatantly irritating out of this whole experience is every time we get into an argument about something, she goes, sorry, did you die? Did you die? I said, no, I didn't die. She said, well, I died. So, and I'm here. So whatever I say goes because I died. I said, well, did you die? No, I didn't die. She holds it over my head. I'll tell you.
Twice.
A couple of times. Right? Yeah. Right.
Okay. You died. I'll go take out the trash or whatever I'm supposed to be doing. But other than that, it was,
if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here.
If it wasn't for 50 people, you wouldn't be here. I was one among many, but no, I did not give up on you. But there was if it was just up to me and all of my drive and ambition, I still wouldn't be here. There was 50 people plugging in at the right time. Without Damon, you wouldn't be here. Without Dr. Buxton, you wouldn't be here. Without Dr. Wynn, you wouldn't be here. Without God, you wouldn't be here. You know, like, where do you want me to stop? Without Deanna knowing Buxton to come in and get at that friendship, you wouldn't be here.
I never had a doubt that I wasn't going to make it, if you could believe that. I mean, I remember when I was diagnosed and the day I was going to the hospital the first time and I had that conversation with God, I knew that day I wasn't going to die. I knew that it wasn't, that the Lord had it.
You were confident the whole time. You never wavered in your faith in that, not even once.
Oh.
Not even one time. You just kept saying, what's next? What do we do? What? Never, oh my God, what if? You never said that.
And when I was alone in my room and losing my shit because it was just me isolated from everything, I just kept saying, I'm not alone because the Lord's here with me the whole time. I mean, I had to keep myself thinking about that all the time. Do
you remember the weird question I asked you when it was all over? You had I don't know, 6 months under your belt, the surgeries were all done. And I said, it was a weird question, but by then it was like, okay, we're all stable now. I said, because I didn't know what was next. I didn't know what our life was going to be like after this. You know, is she all of a sudden, going to change as a person because of this life experience? So me, from my dumb mechanic, dumbass brain, I said, look, I just want to ask you a question. You just answer me honestly. We can move on. But just so I know who I'm married to, did you make any promises to God? She goes, what do you mean? I said, no, I just want to make sure God, if you get me through this, I promise I'll go to church every Sunday. Am I going to church every Sunday? Did you make a promise I'll make sure my husband never drinks alcohol again? I just need to know if there's any promises you made that we have to live up to. She goes, no. I said, are you sure? She goes, it's not how it works anyway. I'm like, I'm just asking, if life's changing, I got to know. And so I did ask you that, if you remember.
Yeah, I do. But no, I did not make any promises to him.
Well, it was, I would have lived up to them had you asked, but I do remember that part too. And I remember all the fun we had watching your hair grow back in all of its stages.
It was kind of fun. All the stages of my
hair. All the stages of your hair.
I had fun with it all. The only thing I'd go back is probably to color it, all different kinds of color. just because.
I know something. I think I'm going to bet Damon's seen it. I know some of the staff members have seen it. I don't know if I said. I know Marcy's never seen it. I did a video for her. I did a tribute video for her about this.
Oh, yeah?
And it's with, we have a favorite song between us. Mm-hmm. And it's online. It's on YouTube, but it's kind of privated. You have to get a link for me to go see it. It's not just out there, although it might be now. But it's been a long time. What?
I don't think it's out there yet.
But it's on. So. But it's online, and I can't play it here. But
right.
At some point, I'll show you in the house, and you can see what kind of, we got to that point where we knew we were on the right track and time had passed. And then I made this kind of compilation thing. So even though we haven't told this story, every now and then we watch that video. We'll pull it up and I'll see it, and then she'll come stand next to me, and we just watch it one time, and it encompasses so much in this song and in this video. And I played it for a couple people that were kind of outsiders looking in, and they cry because it tunes you into what happened there. But that's about it. I don't know if there's anything to add other than I don't think we could have done this without God, and I don't think we could have done it without the 50 people that plugged in at miraculously the right time. I mean, I have my favorites. We could tell, if Damon wasn't there at the right time several times, I can think of 3 or 4 times that it was clutch, then we wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. Guaranteed. If Damon wasn't involved at his level and when he knew it was time to insist and say something and give that dude the phone and say something like to me, like he didn't give me a choice. He's like, this is what you're doing. We wouldn't be here. If Deanna hadn't told Buxton, you need to do this for me, go do this. And he went, all right, I'll go try. You wouldn't be here. There was moments like that. Every
person that was involved in it was a Christian.
Yes.
Do you realize that?
Every person who did any of those decisions along the way, every one of them was a man or a woman of strong faith. None of them were just doing it out of kindness of a stranger. Not one. Except the insurance lady with the plants.
Well, maybe she's a Christian now.
She might be. Thought I was going to get an ass kicking from your brother on that. I was like, God.
Should have.
I didn't do anything. Anyway, I guess that's it. Is there, Damon, why don't you?
I'm just really honored or humbled, or I don't even know the word, to be a part of this whole story and to see it unfold, and knowing what I had, just kind of a little part of this, to see it all, the 20,000 foot view now is just amazing. And for Marcy to be, now knows you guys and was just kind of a fly in the wall, kind of hearing me talk to her about it. Now she's putting it all together. It's, I think it's just so powerful.
Well, Marcy, how do you view it now that you know the whole story? Because you didn't know the whole story before.
Yeah, no, I didn't. It's a lot to process. It really is. And it's something that I know will, like when I go out for my runs or walks or whatever, that pieces will come back to me. And, it's just something that I know I'm going to be able to share with other people who are struggling with whatever they're struggling with. Like my question I was thinking to ask you guys is, what do you think the purpose was for you to go through this?
We've talked about that over and over and over again.
I know something we skipped over. Right before the break, you asked me a question, and then we went to break.
Oh,
what?
You were wrestling?
He wanted to know about me wrestling with God, because I think he's probably the only one I told. I was angry.
You told me.
I told you, of course, but I think outside of being married to you, I don't think I've ever told anybody except Damon. And there was, during the course of this, there was 3 nights I lost my shit and I broke down and I cried about it. In my room by myself where nobody could hear. 3 times. But there was one time I thought we were losing her during that series of hours. And I just fucking unloaded on God. I called him every name. I said, you piece of shit, you put me through this. Why am I not dying? Why are you killing someone perfect? She's wonderful. She's never harmed anyone. She's a good person, and you're making me watch. You motherfucker. I mean, I cussed him out every which way. I said, I told God, I said, if you let her die, I'll never forgive you. You've made an enemy of me for life if you do. I was so mad. I mean, I was losing my mind, and there wasn't a deal to be made. I couldn't come to God and say, I've been a pretty good guy for a lot of years. I think you owe me one. Let's trade. I knew I was a fuck up. I knew I had no bargaining chip. Plus, I knew he was God. He didn't need my favors cashed in. I was just mad that I was going through this. I had never been more angry in my life. I wanted to burn down my house. I wanted to walk down the street smashing cars with windows because I was so mad that he was allowing this to happen when he had the power to change it. And and this was after the first miracle had already happened about her cells being gone. I got that part, but he was making me watch my best friend take her from me, making me watch her slip away, and was willing to let it happen for no reason at all. And I was just lit.
Well, to sum up kind of our talk, when you shared that with me, I just said, you're going to have to sit back and watch this unfold. And it's going to be something where it's going to be so profound. There's nothing you can do at this point. You have to sit back and watch. And you're going to see this unfold, and this is going to be something you're never going to forget.
Do you remember me disagreeing with you at that time?
Oh, well, of course. You were just angry. You're mad, and I don't believe. And I said, I couldn't even go back to the points of what had already happened. I didn't really know the details at that time.
No,
but at this point, it was enough that I think we all had some sort of peace, knowing that she's going to pull through this, but we don't know how. I didn't know how, but I knew that she was going to pull through.
I didn't think so.
But I knew it was all because of this bigger purpose, and I just, it was hard to get through to you, but I just said, sit back and watch.
Because the thing that I remember at the end of it was, and I'm going to say this wrong, but it was almost like I said, all right, when I got done talking to you, I was telling the world out loud, I was like, all right, Damon wants me to sit back and see how this unfolds. Damon wants me to put myself in check for a minute with all the reasons you said. And I said, all right, fine. I will try to very hard do that. But I remember saying to God, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because Damon, my friend, asked me to. I'm still pissed at you.
Yeah.
But as things began to unfold and things from there got worse and then they got better, after that whole thing, I had to apologize to God and go, all right, I realized my tantrum didn't do anything. In fact, I remember apologizing to God about it and having in my mind him telling me something along the lines of, dude, it didn't get worse or get better because of your tantrum. Your tantrum didn't have anything to do with what I was doing. I didn't make things worse because you were an asshole. I didn't make things better because you threatened me. In fact, you were completely irrelevant to what my plan was. That's how I felt, him telling me, as I'm going, yeah, I got it. I got it. I'm sorry. And I fucked up and I won't do it again. And, I'm trying to apologize. And that was the lecture I heard in my head that he was telling me. He's like, you're insignificant, man. I was doing something that had to do with her, not with you. And the part that something Damon had triggered and something Damon has told me in a small piece in different conversations over our friendship was the same thing that everybody says in bigger words that you hate to hear. Well, you don't know who this is going to affect. This really could mean something to someone further around. You don't know if someone in China is going to hear this story and be changed forever. And you're like, I don't give a shit. I don't care about all that. But what he was telling me, one of the parts, he's like, let's see how this plays out. You don't know how this is going to affect anyone. He meant me, but he meant you don't know where we're going with this yet, man. Just let it play out. You got to sit back. And he was right. I have no idea how many tens of thousands of people this affected. I don't know how many times she was recorded during speeches that are still getting played at some little hospital in Germany. Who knows? Who would have any idea? But it's out there, and he did it for a reason, and I have no idea.
I have a reason, or a reason for it to be a purpose was, I think in the times that we live, that we don't always see the miracles that happen, or we think God doesn't do miracles, he's too busy, or we just don't take the time to see it. But I think he's still doing them. Mm-hmm. Even though we read them in the Bible years ago, he hasn't stopped. I mean, even though the Bible was stopped somewhere in time, that doesn't mean God stopped. And I didn't have just one miracle. I had many miracles in a time span. And I think it was just to show that he's still there, that he's still there making miracles happen, and we just have to look and find it. It wasn't for me personally. It was just, I was the vessel to show that there is a God out there greater than us that can make things happen.
Well, take our eyes off of ourselves and put them back on him where they belong.
There's no doubt that there was miracles. I don't think anybody can deny that those were an accident, a coincidence, or, just a random throw of the dice. Iceman, you've been pretty quiet here, but you observed this whole thing pretty much from beginning to end.
Yeah.
You popped in and out during all this, after, when she was in recovery, when we started having barbecues again in the yard. You stayed at the house. I mean, you've seen this from a very close perspective.
Yeah.
All of these things. What's your take on all this?
All I know is that it just drew me closer to your family, and I'd always, I had a good impression of your kids. They're all good kids and all that, but I mean, there was an irresistible gravitational force that just pulled me into caring about the core of your family, and it was really beautiful. And you guys were very welcoming toward me, and it was. I don't know. You guys are all right.
Well, I guess we should wrap it up then. Now we got the seal of approval from Iceman that we're all right.
Yeah, you're all right.
Now we know. We can all continue on. We're
good people. Right. You're good people.
Thanks, everybody, for participating. Sorry that it was a little bit emotionally choked up at times, even myself. I'm going to edit all that out. I'm going to put a big fake face over me so I look strong. Yes, I am. You can't stop me. I'm not going into this thing crying. But it was a story that needed to be told from beginning to end with as many perspectives as we can. We've been promising to do this for years and years and years. Damon, we've been trying to do this for 2 or 3 years now, get together, everyone together, and it never clicked. It never quite happened. But today it finally did. So now we got 2 parts. It's about 4 hours long. No, it's 2, 3, 4, 3. Almost 4 hours long.
Yeah.
This whole thing. So I'm not sure how we'll break this up, or if we will. Maybe we'll just leave it out there. Because once you kind of get engaged in the story, you want to hear the next part of it. So anyway, that's it. I want to say goodbye. Everybody say goodbye. Thanks for tuning in and coming around. And we'll sign off here, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. We'll make it really easy today.